Welcome to the Fullcaster Podcast, episode 15. Our guest today is going to be a fun one, none other than sports car ace and good friend of ours, Craig Stanton. I'm really looking forward to bringing him on. He's just always in a good mood. Like if there was a contest for the nicest people on the planet, this guy's be like right at the sharp end. You know what I'm saying? Looking forward to bringing him on and just chatting a bit about what he's done in his career. And actually, we know him more from the sport karting side, so I'm not sure how much karting he's done or ever that kind of stuff, so that's going to be fun to bring him on and chat. But before we get into all that kind of stuff, Dirk, let's go ahead and cover our current events here like we usually do. Recording this on August 3rd, so we just got done with the
return Tri-C.
Exactly.
The doubleheader weekend.
Which means CSK racing for us. Yeah, man, it was brutal. Hot weather.
The hardest day was Friday. Like, it was definitely super hot that day. It started to cool off throughout the weekend, but
Saturday I think was just as hot. I just think we got acclimated. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
God, it was freaking hot when we were setting the thing up on Thursday.
There was less hot air blowing.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was tough because Friday everyone is coming. All of our customers have come back. All of our drivers, right? So they're trying to get remembering which way is up and that kind of stuff. But then it's that prep day for us, finding little things we need to fix or whatever. So Friday's always hectic, but
this
the weekend got
felt
smoother.
like a more hectic one, like you're saying. I mean, the carts have been in storage basically for 4 months, and
only a few of them would come out for practice. So have gotten ahead of stuff.
Yeah, no, it was definitely an interesting Friday. Had a little hiccups here and there and stuff like that, and then, like I said, with the amount of the grip and the heat and everything like that as the weekend went on, it was challenging. But
yeah, for sure.
Without getting into all that kinds of junk too much, just a couple of shout outs to our guys. I mean, obviously we had talked about CSK racing. This probably being the last season for us, at least doing it the way we're doing it now and that kind of thing. And we definitely want to end on top and still have the successes and stuff we've been able to enjoy the last 3 years. And those guys killed it again this weekend. Shout outs to Pietro Moro and Alexander Bermudez bringing home senior and Masters 206 on Sunday. And then Seth Willits is killing it.
Yeah.
I said Saturday, actually, on those guys. Sunday for Seth Willits.
Once we got his chassis dialed in,
man.
he had an issue with that. But once we got it straightened, he was back.
No, actually, that was just it. It was fine.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought there was a little bit of bend to it.
Well, no, that was the Sean's. We ended up straightening that one. But no, and that was the thing. We were just scratching our heads on Saturday. How in the hell is he not at the sharp end?
And the guy who won the 2018 championship.
Yeah, he's a senior champion, right? We know he knows how to drive and the same bloody equipment as he had last year. So anyways, but he ends up, we get stuff figured out and kind of really going outside the box on the tuning game a little bit. And things worked. And unfortunately, freaking screen on the silencer came out on the Masters main. And he was only able to he won both, but he can only keep the senior one, unfortunately. So
he got deked on that, but he was definitely still a guy to beat in the Masters class on Sunday.
Oh, he was gone. He was the guy.
He had it.
Yeah. No, I mean, Alexander Bermudez ended up scoring the W on that one because with the DQ. But so good weekend for him getting a couple of them. But yeah, it was tough on that end. It was tough on us. And last one was a shout out to Pietro. He, like we said, he won and just barely got beat on by Bermudez,
Saturday,
and then freaking Sunday his chassis breaks right before the mains, and he still came away with a third after the DQ and a fourth on the other one. So awesome drive.
That was brilliant by him, and that was a big crack. I mean, the
sheared
chassis
off
was
one
sheared in half, and their side's
nuts.
cracking. So for him to, he started last in senior, drove up to fourth or whatever.
That was awesome,
and then was able to hold on to a top 5 in Masters. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, good on those guys. And it's certainly a good time for us to hang out with them. I mean, the game days are a hell of a lot of fun working with all of them. We got a great bunch of dudes. And, this weekend we got Classico Grand Prix, right? It's the biggest sport karting event of the year, Classico Grand Prix for us. And as far as the regular season goes. And, just kind of thinking about that for a second. So for me, like if you're not going to be able to run a full season of something, those one-off events, like a Classico Grand Prix or
this is when the heavy hitters show up and you get to stack yourself up.
Exactly, that or like a Machismo or whatever, like this kind of going out for a one-off, whether it be to prove yourself or whether it be to just, you're going to go against, like you said, the better talent, the best of the best, or whatever it is, that carrot, You know, that little extra something, you know, where it's not just because I don't want to just go out for round number 2 of Pro Kart or round number 1 of this or whatever. You want to, hey, I want to go out against the guys. If you're not going to be able to do the whole season, I mean, you know, if you don't have the carrot at the championship, having a carrot of this one-off is, you know, that's what draws me in, you know. You know, and kind of speaking of that, doing one-off big races and that kind of stuff, I think our guest today gets a chance to do quite a bit of that kind of stuff, or has over his career. So
Yeah.
I think with you know, without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guest today, Craig Stanton. Craig Stanton, thanks for coming out, bud.
I am so stoked to be here. Yeah, with a couple of brothers and here at CalSpeed, and I'm super excited.
Man,
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming out for sure. I mean, you were here actually doing a coaching session in sport cars, which is honestly what we see most of you out here when you're doing that kind of thing. And I was like, Derek, hey, you know, it'd be actually pretty cool to get Craig on the show.
Yeah.
What do you got going on? I was like, yeah, I could do it. I'm like, the badass, man.
No, it wasn't just I can do it. I said, yes, let's do it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody stop practice. Yeah, we're going to do this.
Yeah, it's fun. Super fun.
And so the first thing we always ask everybody is what they do for a living. What now? Like I know you do the coaching in sport cars, so you bring some guys out here. But what is the 9 to 5, if you will?
Yeah, so I've had a long career, and I'm kind of winding down from the racing side and upping the coaching side. So really the last 10 years of my racing career, and it ended somewhere around early 18, you know, and a couple races into 19 was really the last 10 years was just to be a current pro coach. So I didn't really I had a huge desire always, obviously, with racing, but it was really about coaching. And because I was gifted with a gift like you guys. I was gifted with a gift years ago, and I want to give it away. I want to pass it on. I want to pass that gift of motorsports and excitement and all the, you know, all what I've learned.
So we were talking about a pro coach. You see the last 10 or so years, is that like a relevancy thing? Like I need to be in the race car at some point to show guys, no, I do know what I'm talking about, or what, even with the vat of knowledge you have and the experience you have?
Yeah. So I guess the sport evolves, and I always want to be in that evolution or be part of that evolution, right? So most of my career, I was always thinking what's going to be current, or what I can bring to the sport in the next 6 months. So I was always I was course correcting along the way, but it was really planning for the next 6 months, and even being a trendsetter potentially, whether it's safety or the fitness side or how to bring, you know, being an educator, motivator, and lead by example, how I can be better.
Right.
And so I use motorsports as how good I can be. It isn't like an ego that I've got to go race. It's more like it's an experiment. It was a 40-year experiment of how I can bring my A++ game to the event each and every day. So
your livelihood is a driver coach. That's what you do for the most part, as far as bringing in the income and stuff like that. And what are you coaching besides sport cars?
So interesting is, if I go back a minute, I always raced, and I usually try to evolve. I try to schedule in somewhere between 40 and 60 races a year. And to do that, I always wanted to be current. And for me, I always thought, oh man, I'm nervous, man, because there's so many stories within the story. So if you guys do, I mean, you're here at the track all the time. So think about 40 years of being at the track for 5 days a week. There's so many. You might
have accrued 1 or 2 things to say.
So it's like, you know, as I say one thing, everything just floods.
It starts to come into you.
But really, what it is my day to day now is coaching. I'm the lead development driver for Toyota.
Oh, nice.
TRD, and I work for Corsa Pilota, which is the factory Ferrari experience racing school. And I'm a lead coach for the Trophy Cup West, the Yokohama Trophy Cup West. So I make sure that all the coaches and the drivers are headed in one direction.
Okay, so it's not just when we talk about driver coaching, and I think maybe the easiest or the first thing comes to mind, like it certainly does with me, is the individual.
Yeah.
But you actually are doing it not only on the individual, on the individual basis, but you're also doing it with actual organizations, schools, and
Correct.
then on a larger, a bigger scale.
Yeah, I am. So I work for Porsche and Ferrari on their corporate side, on their race side, on their motorsports side. And then I have like 30 to 40 clients, depending on, how I count throughout the year that I see.
Gotcha.
And so it's really busy. Yeah.
How was that transition? Well, let me back up, I guess. I mean, as you said, through all the years, you always wanted to be, stay relevant, stuff like that. How long have you been doing the coaching game? I mean, racing a long time, but actually the coaching part.
Yeah. So I would say early on, I would say in the early 90s, I was coaching. And before that was the corporate ride and drive programs, which really was the start of my coaching. So it's a lot of right seat, as you guys know. It's a lot of corporate stuff where you're doing a vehicle launch or some sort of a corporate motorsports or manufacturer launch or
some kind of temporary course. And
around autocross, what you would see across the way there.
Right. Yeah.
And then it got into one-on-one motorsport stuff. And it was interesting as I always was fit from the motorcycle side. It was 9 years of motocross and did a lot of volume, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Friday nights.
Was that how you got into racing?
Yes. Actually, there's another jump.
Yeah. So, very, very first racing experience or memory that you got, the very first thing.
So, school was funny for me. It was a challenge. And back, I graduated from high school in 75, a long time ago. And so they didn't know what dyslexia was and the learning disabilities and stuff. And so I just, I was slow and it wasn't tailored. And I have a lot of energy, so I wasn't committed into school and I wanted to do other things. And I was really good. My dad taught me how to ski and surf when I was 10. So I wanted to do stuff. So I got through school and I promised my parents I'd go to Glendale College, and I got into their machine shop apprentice program.
Nice.
And was there for a couple of years, and the instructor just goes, you got to get a job. And I go, I don't want a job. And he goes, no, there's 2 interviews you can do. They're friends of mine. They're machine shops. Go down. And I went to the first one, and it's small little machine shop cutting oil on the walls and stuff. And everybody's smoking. It's like an opium den. And I just turned around and walked out. And then I went to another interview, and it was kind of the same thing. But as I walked out, I looked across the way, and it was this shop. It was a show shop. And it was an off-road race shop.
Oh. Nice.
And so bright and cheery, there's like 30 guys standing in a huddle. And there's 3 Class 8 trucks, and that was the trophy truck at the time. And they had unlimited 2-seaters and single-seaters, and Bobby Farrow and Ivan Stewart was the drivers, and a bunch of other people. Anyway, so I walk in. I'm like a 18-year-old kid. I walk in, and I'm looking around, and somebody goes, and there's these group of guys. And somebody goes, hey, what's going on? And I said, I'm just across the street doing an interview for a job. I don't want to work there. I want to work here. And somebody goes, of this group, well, what can you do? And I said, I can do about anything. And I'd already built motors and transmissions and body work and all these other things. I learned how to do all that early on. And so somebody goes, can you rebuild a motor? I said, yeah. Can you run a machine in a machine? Yes. And what about a transmission? So these guys are rapid fire me. And I had a little bit of a quick tongue back there. And I said, F this. And I walked off, and the foreman came up, Guy Jones. And he says, hey, hang on a second. I said, why not, what's going on? And I said, I like to get a job here. And he goes, well, come back in a week and a half. And what had happened is I stumbled onto the team meeting of the off-road race team that was going to the 500.
The Baja deal.
The Baja 500. And everybody flew in, drove in to have a meeting, hop in the vehicles, the chase vehicles, and all the trailers and whatnot, and take them down to Mexico.
Get out.
I was right in the middle of it. So he goes,
what timing?
Crazy.
Yeah.
And he says, just show up in a week and a half I got goosebumps again. Show up in a week and a half on a Tuesday. And I said, well, I got school until 11. And so I'll be here at 11:15. He goes, great. So I show up at 11:15 on a Tuesday. Where the hell were you? We're waiting for you, and on and on and on. And we were waiting for you yesterday. We thought you were going to be here at 7 when we get there. And I'm thinking, yeah, but he goes, go in there. Your uniform says Leroy on it. And and your first job is to clean the bathrooms, empty out the trash cans, sweep the floors, and mop the floors. And then when you do that, there's all the trucks, all the panels, all the, all this. I mean, they just came back from Mexico and everything's dirty.
Yeah.
You can start cleaning all that.
In fact, they grabbed a few more puddles on the way just to make sure, right?
Right. Exactly. And so I said, what happened to Leroy? Because he goes, yeah, your uniform's, and he goes, he got fired. Now you're Leroy. And everybody called me Leroy. So that was.
And the guy before him was probably Leroy too.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was my job for 3.5 years.
Wow.
And I worked into a sweeping the floors, literally mopping the floors. And then if I get all my work done, then I could start cleaning trucks. And if I got all that stuff done, then I could mount some tires for some of the
You got to do a little bit cooler and cooler stuff.
As I hustled, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
As I hustled.
Yeah, it might have started as cool, but I would think year 2 of cleaning, it's the same bloody truck it was last time.
Yeah, just about the time I get everything clean, now we're going testing.
Right.
It's like, son of a, Anyway, and worked into a driving the truck, driving one of the chase rigs.
Oh, nice.
And then, I mean, this is over a couple of years period of time. And then
Were you still going to school during that period of time?
I was tapering off of school. This was way more exciting.
Your speed, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was in it. I was more into experiences, and I was hands-on, and that suits me more than. Yeah, and I would get to do a little bit of machining, mill, lathe. I knew how to weld already, so I was doing a little bit of that, and I was really young, and then I was chasing. They would give me responsibilities of at the time, $200,000 chase rig, and I'd be with a mechanic, and we'd have generators and compressors and lights and all the spares, and it was crazy. And I was always making the stops, and I was always helping. Anyway, it was a long story, but there's so many stories within a story, right? And then I worked into a driving position. So the unlimited 2-seaters were at the top level of the sport at the time.
That's where they got a driver and a co-driver at the same time?
Yeah. And so there was 2 doctors in one of the vehicles. In the first race, one of the doctors, and I was testing at the time. So we'd go out to El Mirage with all the vehicles, make sure they accelerated and braked and turned and shifted and did all their stuff.
Standard stuff, shake them down.
And they knew that I could chase. They knew that I could now test. And so they threw me in with one of the doctors. In the first race, we got second. In the second race, we got first.
Nice.
Wow.
Then at that point, I didn't have to clean the bathrooms and sweep the floors and empty out the trash.
But there was no one ever as good at that clean those bathrooms.
Yeah, that was
after
fast.
you.
Yeah.
The next Leroy, not nearly as good.
Yeah.
What? So how long do you do that deal? Was it 2-3 years before you actually started? Before you got a chance to do your first race?
No, it was probably 2 years.
Okay, 2 years.
2 years.
So before you do that, deal with the doctors and whatnot. So you're like 20ish,
Barely.
right around barely in
Yes.
your 20s.
Yeah.
And this is your first race ever
Yes.
in anything.
Yes. Oh well, I was racing motorcycles at the time as well.
This
Yeah,
is
okay,
your
so-
first car race.
Yeah,
though.
yeah. So I was racing motorcycles at the time.
How did you? Yeah. So if you're doing that, but you're doing the motorcycle, how did you get into motorcycle stuff in the first place? And how old were you at the time?
It's so funny. It was later. I started later in life. There was a lot of like Willie Musgrave, Billy's dad. I raced against him a little bit,
Oh wow.
and he started, when he was a minicycle rider, in the 80s and stuff, and before that. And so I started later, and my goal was just to be a mid-pack pro because I was a lot later. And so I just thought, so I was getting into it, but we were so busy at the off-road shop. And as that got shut down, then I jumped all in the motorcycles.
So when did you start doing that? Were you in your teens then when you started
I
doing
need
the
a
motorcycle?
calculator. I'm not sure. I need to go back and look at my resume. But yeah, it was a transition as soon as the money ran out in the off-road shop.
Gotcha.
And then all of a sudden it's like, what am I doing?
Gotcha.
And then I just happened, one of the clients that was that we built a play buggy for, 4-seater, owned Burbank Sporting Goods. And so I went out and tested with him and got it dialed in the desert. And so he offered me a job. So now I'm working at the sporting goods store, racing motorcycles. And
Wow.
the guys that were working at the shop skied a lot, and they were racing a little bit, but riding all the time.
So you didn't come from your family as a kid. You guys, racing wasn't a part of it.
My dad was a hot rodder. And he had a
Okay.
40 Ford, and right out of college, and when we go over to my grandfather's house, there's always bent axles and broken cranks, and there's all these parts, of him, building
Getting after it.
Yeah, right. And and I learned early on that you can never leave anything stock. And then I was doing a lot of his head work. So he was an auto shop teacher, so he taught me how to do valve grinds and porting
awesome.
and polishing. And,
Is that how you were able to answer those questions when you walked into the shop? Yeah, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know how to do that. It's because your dad was a shop teacher.
auto shop teacher.
From an early age, you just learned
math,
how to do this stuff.
auto shop, electronics. And so what happened is when I went through, there's so many stories. When I went through as a senior, I got extra credit to if I could go. Somebody said they need some help at the Foothill Datsun, and at the time, my age group guys either had Datsun 510s or they had Morris Minors. Tuesday and Thursdays, I went up and worked at Foothill Datsun.
Oh,
And
wow.
extra credit again for the class is if you rebuild a motor, then you get extra credit points. And so I talked to the guys at the Datsun agency and I said, I want some extra credit. You got an old 1600 around that I can rebuild. They go, oh yeah, sounds good. So they showed me how to take it apart, and then I got everything going back together. It's like, oh, you're not going to put that 1600 crank in there, are you? I said, yeah, I'm just going to rebuild. He goes, no, we're going to do it another way. So they gave me an 1800 crank, 1800 rods, Z-car pistons, which is flat top pistons. And now, and they showed me how to port and polish, which I already knew, and how to do a valve grind. And so they showed me how to balance it and put it back together. And so now I'm up and running. Now I got a motor.
And you're like, this is a hell of a lot better than actually being at school.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was a senior, right? So now all of a sudden, and then I get the motor together. And I changed the timing of the cam and everything. So I got a good motor here. And I was one of the guys at the Datsun agency was showing me how to do it.
That's cool.
Taught me, he did all that stuff there, and he was certified at rebuild motors, blah blah blah. Anyway, so one of my friends has a 510, and he blows the motor up, over revs it, spins a bearing out of the thing, and all of a sudden it's like, I got a motor here. I'll just sell you the motor. It was cheap because they gave me, I think it was $500 or something, super cheap because it was all free stuff. Well, he had a stock motor. Now it's an 1800. Timing's a little different. I did a great valve job on it. And now all of a sudden it's port and polished. And now he's got all of his friends driving it, go, this is a stock 1600 and it flies, right? Now all of a sudden I'm building, 10,
Nice.
15. And some of those motors went to the track as a stock 1600 motor, right? IT,
nice.
SCCA. So
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing. I was just,
Craig Stanton single-handedly taking down the 510 game in SCCA.
so now I got all these people wanting a motor for their 510s and stuff. Oh man, it was funny.
And you're 18-ish.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I'm chasing and I'm working at the off-road shop and I'm starting to race motorcycles. And
So what happens at the when we get to the other side of this? Do you say the off-road shop ends up having to go? The race team is No Mas, and you're doing you're working
Burbank
at
Sporting Goods.
at the sporting goods store doing
And
motorcycles. How do we go from there?
So all of a sudden these guys were riding a lot, but all of a sudden it's like, I met a guy and he was racing and he goes, why don't you come out to the track with me? I mean, there's never a time that I said, I want to race motorcycles or I want to race cars. These doors just opened up.
Oh, okay. So
Interesting.
you never had that fire to be a race car driver.
I just
out
wanted
of
to
the gate.
surf. I wanted to ski. I wanted to, whatever was in front of me, I wanted to get really good at it. And I learned how to learn. I learned how to learn early on from my dad. He's a teacher and he was a ski instructor and he taught at some different resorts around.
You are your father's son, for sure.
We'll talk about that later on a few little issues. Yeah. Gotcha. But no, he taught me a lot about surfing and skiing early on and how to learn. Right. So I just picked out if I want to see what the latest is on sport card, I just watch you guys out there. I follow you guys for a couple laps. I say, I see how you do it. You rotate the car, you turn it in, you don't scrub any speed. So I learn how to learn. So I see somebody with a great style where they flow, where they're fast, easy on equipment, and I just take it in,
Right.
and and then I duplicate it.
So you're doing the motorcycle stuff, and there's a bunch of other people around doing other things. When do you go from just doing it for fun to actually doing it maybe on a more regular basis? Because you did the buggy thing.
Yep.
And you did the motorcycle stuff, and you are racing.
Yep.
And are you just racing because this would be fun, but you didn't have that desire to go I'm going to make this my living?
Yeah.
It was just that other thing that had to be going on. It's a hell of a lot more fun than this other stuff.
I think what it was is that, I think back, how is that? The more I did something, the better I got.
Gotcha.
The more that I jumped all in, the more I was calibrated and didn't get uncalibrated. And that calibration of being always current, always it always built on itself, because you're always evolving as a driver, as a human, right? So raced for many, many, many years. And I think it was my personality is I want to see how good I can be. And the more I do it, the clearer and the more I progress, because we evolve as a human, right? So your body adapts. Your body adapts to a kart. Your body adapts to a motorcycle, surfboard, skiing, whatever. It adapts if you put the time in. And so, I just wanted to do a lot of racing, and I have kind of addictive personality. I'd probably be in the bars if I wasn't racing. I mean, so the more the better, because it keeps my brain focused, keeps me in a schedule. And it was really here's another tangent.
Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, remember this. We'll get right back to this, but as I wind down from a career, all of a sudden, there was a schedule. So it was IMSA, it was Rolex, it was Continental Challenge, it was some GS program, it was World Challenge. So I had a schedule for the year.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had to be on a plane on Wednesday, and I would come back on Sunday night. And I had this. Now all of a sudden I'm not racing as much, and I'm like, wow, I need to really be more focused on a schedule, because now I'm kind of lost.
You can't handle that time off without having shit to do.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, for a guy with so much energy, that busy schedule, that's perfect for you.
Perfect.
That kind of personality, right?
Perfect.
And yeah, now that it's coaching, you're scheduling it as you can and as that student can.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, now I gotta be
like
anyone,
disciplined.
I think, especially with the COVID stuff, you're like, all right, now I gotta find more shit to fill my time with.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, so back on the bikes, it was just a lot of volume. So I'd practice on Tuesday and Thursdays, or I'd race on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I'd always be current, and I got better and better and better and better. And I just saw that. I saw how that worked. I'd be fitter. I'd be more, sharp up top. It's mind, body, spirit, right? And so all those things came together. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, how come I'm really, really good on one day and I'm not that good on the other day? And then it's like, I'm going to do a deep dive on, is it nutrition? Is it sleep? Is it your relationships, your mind, body, spirit, right? Is it your relationships with your, family or your partner or whatever it is? All those things are encompassing. So the lap time, I always tell my clients, a lap time is only 1 or 2%. Maybe we'll call it 10%. But you've got that whole pie left of, on a pro side, are you fast at night? Are you fast in the day? Are you fast in the heat? Are you fast in the rain? Are you always, are you always fit? Are you always healthy? Can you educate, motivate? Can you be clear? Can you be gracious? Can you be grateful? Because that's a 10th. Mm-hmm. So that's. But anyway, so back to the volume. I just did a lot of volume. I got better. I learned how to learn. I learned how to pit. I learned how to, work on a championship, a long run, and so.
I like how you put that, by the way. I mean, going back to earlier, Mike was saying about the one-off events, right? I've actually always, he needs a carrot for a championship at the end of the year, and I really enjoy doing that too, but I'll spend the money on a bullshit weekend just to go have some fun and shake things up if I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are those differences where you're a guy that doesn't mind doing the one-off weekend or that championship hunt, but I like how you put you're learning how to go for that championship. It's a different mindset of, maybe like, oh, you know what? Second's where I'm going to be right now. And next round we'll come back, try to get first. But right now my car is as good as I can get for second. And that's where it's at.
It's interesting is you being out here, and I know you as a brother,
right?
And you too, even if you're not in a kart, you're actually, there's something, even out of your peripheral, you're learning.
Yeah.
You're seeing somebody come across, start finish and with a push or loose or whatever. You may not even focus in, but your brain,
it's registering it.
It is registering in somewhere along the way. And there's somewhere along the way that you're processing some of those things, right? So it's like, oh, that guy turned it early, got in the curb or whatever it was. He's not getting a good drive off down the hill, right?
Yeah.
So
your brain is constantly in that game.
Yeah.
Even instead of going I'm going to go vacation and be on the beach, well, your brain is now switched off from that particular situation.
So I know you guys. So that's even though you're working, it's still valuable time. It's laps and it's time.
Dude, I mean, so obviously I run the open practice days, right? The first 2 years here, I mean, because I already had been racing for a while, but the first 2 years of just watching the track, and we had a ton of shifter drivers out here at that time. That was probably the most I've ever learned without driving.
Right.
Was just watching, seeing guys get it right, seeing guys get it wrong, and seeing
The
everyone in
repercussions of
between.
those things too. Yeah.
Everyone in between do it different.
Yeah.
So no, it's and to your point, I'm watching, but I'm not focused. But I'll see. I'm like, oh, that's what happened, and this is why. All you start having that equation go on in your head.
Yeah.
So
when a guy runs across the start finish and he's in a shifter, one of the guys that there's a small group of those guys that are spot on, and then there's everybody else that are struggling off too high RPM, not enough RPM. They're hopping, whatever. They're not turning enough before the first curve. There's all sorts of appropriate shit going on out there, right?
Yeah.
And so you can, not even looking at it, you can hear it. And then somewhere in your process, because you're a racer, you're processing it and then when you hop in, then that process as you're going, that course correction of evaluation and setting up another plan for the next lap. That's what you guys do.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. To go back for a second to two things that stood out to me. You graduate high school and you said that, we talked about college for a second, but you said it kind of starts to dwindle down. Was your motivation for, because I know mine was, like, I graduated high school and I went to college for a year.
Yeah.
But I was half-assing it. My mind was go be a race car driver, so all that kind of stuff. Were you interested in going to college, or was it kind of like your parents you made that deal with your parents?
I was not interested.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the day that I got out of high school, my life went, it just expanded. Infinite possibilities, because I was kind of not beat down, but it was like I was under this, I was in this box, and I was everything outside the box. If that like you. And so we've had you guys have had a long career like me, is not being in the box. And this out here is not being in the box. Yeah, you got to make ends meet financially and blah blah blah. But this out here is it's completely outside the box.
Yeah.
If you're inside the box, you wouldn't be here, right? So as soon as I for some reason I went to grad night right after graduation, it was like.
Yeah.
And then I was just wasting time. I was taking up space at school, at college, and they just wanted me to go for a year. And I was just pulling the slingshot back, and then I was off to the races.
I had
Quite literally.
Yeah. But it was, hold that thought, but it really wasn't about racing. It was about experiences. It was about doing anything that was in that flow state. So I was racing bicycles. I was, surfing a lot, skiing a lot. And so anything that was in movement, I think, that was interesting. Everything in movement, and then being able to use that side of my brain, that artistic side, that pro side, that whatever, that athlete side, that evolution side, that was what I was excited about.
If you get a chance, listen to the Kyle Hayner episode of this show.
Oh, nice.
Because he's owns a kart team. He's been racing a long time and all that. But he said he's always kind of chased the vibe of what's been in front of him. So he played basketball for a while as a kid. He did karting, basketball, now back to motorsports and stuff. But whatever's been in front of him, that's been the thing that he's like, yeah, I'll just trust my gut and go with that one. So he kind of relies on the universe to guide him of what his next decision is, which is pretty neat. But yeah, back to the college thing, like that was my thing too. I mean, I was guessing on what I wanted to go study, and everything that I wanted to go study kind of came back to how I could have a foot in motorsports.
Yeah.
So I actually really liked riding back in high school, which is funny because Mike does all the riding here, and I would never want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I can go be a journalist and go write. I'm like, I'd love to go write for Racer, that kind of stuff.
God, that'd have been a terrible idea.
Yeah. I would
have just had the
Hindsight,
title,
right?
and that was it.
Or you would have you would have had a deal where you're doing it at home, right? And you're doing all this too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you would supplement your.
And now that was the other thing too. I'm like, well, there's not a lot of money in just that, And then the other part was, I'm like, I could go learn. I can go take, auto mechanic class and get an understanding of how stuff works. But it all came back to, man, I want to go drive, and I want to be at the track, and I want to learn the industry, not just one side of it.
Yeah.
And eventually I'm like, I told my parents, I'm like, hey, I think I was around 20 at the time. I said, hey, I think I got one more good shot at it. Let me try it. And they said, okay, but you got to come back to school. And I never ended up doing that.
Yeah.
And
you got them.
I ended up making sure I never brought it back up. But
Yeah.
You just did.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're going back.
Oh, your mom's going to listen.
They don't listen.
Yeah.
man.
But you know, also too, is there's a point there where your family's probably going, you know what? It's okay because you turned out amazing. You turned out great. You're in a really good spot. You're in a good spot here. This is run better and more progressive than many tracks over the U.S.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Appreciate that. Yeah.
So you're in a really, really good spot here.
Well, and that's kind of the neat part too. They know that I work here, and my brother and sister do. All of them know I work here, and they respect it. You know, there's never any shit talking going on amongst us, but I don't think they understand. And it's just because they're not in the industry, and they're not going to come out and just watch me work and throw a checkered flag all day. But they don't understand the grand scale of the track and what we kind of do and all that stuff.
It's hard to put in perspective.
It is.
Passion.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, when you do something that is, I mean, like Craig had said, outside the box.
That's a
if you
great
do
way to
something
put
that's
it.
not, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, those don't all have to be inside the box. But
Yeah.
if you are doing
General
something that
stuff.
you like to do, and you genuinely, this is my gig, this is what I like to do, then it's really hard. Because, I mean, man, shit, I'll hear this from, oh, yeah, I do this. And I'm like, why in the hell would you want to do that? Because I can't relate. I don't. But that's what they love to do. That's their passion. So it's once you can find that thing.
Well, and it's funny. So I've talked to you about this recently. As I've gotten older, and I'm like really starting to pay more attention to the financial side of stuff and career choices, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, and I'm like, there's this few people who make a shit ton of money and are stoked and they're happy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I could split it in half, there's those people that make a lot of money and are okay, or maybe worse, unhappy with what they do. And then there's people that make enough and they're stoked. And if you're in karting, or honestly, if you're in motorsports, you make enough and you're probably pretty stoked. And I know I am because I'm in the industry I want to be in.
Yeah.
But it's just a crazy journey how, going back to, this is what reminded me of another situation I had when you walked up to the off-road shop, and then, you're starting to mop the floors and all that. So obviously, I go to Long Beach Grand Prix, and you're a SoCal kid, you're from Hollywood and all that. But when the Grand Prix would come in town, that was the one race, because high school, all that stuff, I never had a chance to travel or do anything. But when the Grand Prix came into town, I'm like, you know what? This is the one chance I get to, maybe I can take advantage of getting my foot in the door. And World Challenge, which you were racing at the time, they'd come through town and whatnot. But I would always try to find a small budget team, which one of the teams was like an ST class, and they're running a Honda Civic.
Nice.
And like 2 or 3 years, I'd go up to them, and they would always say, hey, come back next year. But I'm like, hey, if I could hang out, get a shirt for the weekend, and if you need food, I'll run and get it. If you want me to clean the car, I'll go and get it.
Nice.
And they'd always ask the chief, the crew chief in charge, and it ended up always being a no. But just it's all about having the foot in the door.
Yeah.
And I think we've all had that point where we're not desperate, but we're just willing.
Yeah.
I think if anyone has been in the industry and tried to make it as a driver, you've always had those points where you're willing to do the shit work at the end of the day, because it's what you want to be around, and it sounds like fun.
Yeah. It's interesting to, you guys are, just so you know, your parents should and will progressively be more proud of you. Look at you guys run a freaking podcast. This
is what did it. It was the podcast. The pride wasn't there.
His dad is now proud of him.
Yeah, no, up until this point.
No, but what happens is you guys are how do I say this? Motorsports, skiing, anything that you want to do out in life. I know this to be true with some of my clients. They pick an activity to work out their shit in life. And that's what I feel that a lot of people here in karting have the ability to be in movement, be in an activity, be in something that when you progress, you have you have to change to progress. You have to allow that integration process. You have to let go of some of the fear. You have to, you have to get more sleep. You have to get, fitter, whatever it is. There's a multitude of things that have to happen. So you're creating a space for somebody to like, I always wanted to race, but damn, I can go race a go-kart.
Yeah.
I can come over here for 3 20-minute sessions and be in a sport cart and feel like I'm a pro.
Right.
And I can progress. And I can start racing. I can take a clinic, which I'm really proud about, is being maybe, partnering with you on a couple different levels on having a Craig Stanton Kart Day.
No, it started there. Yeah.
Putting out on, on Facebook, and I get 40 people and I wouldn't only know 20.
Right.
And then you and I, helped each other on that. And next thing we know, we're doing track walks and we're doing sessions, and now you link it up with a race, and now you got a full day, and people are changing, and people are going, wow, I always wanted to do it, and now I can do it. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a sport cart or if you're in a, 991.2 Porsche. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. If you got 2 people next to each other, now you got something to work with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I love all that. I mean, I think this is a really good way. I mean, there's so many people that don't have the ability, they don't have the money, whatever it is, but they can do it here.
Yeah.
And look at, I don't even know I can make the B main right now. I mean, you got an A group and a B group, and even a C and a D. Now the C and D those guys are actually, and gals, that are working harder to get up to the B. So there's the carrot, right? And to watch these people, this group, go out there and run really hard at the front of the A, you got to be pretty crafty and pretty slick.
Yeah.
No question. And that's why all that, like I said in the past, I bring a pro in town, to go work up at with a local track or something. And now all of a sudden, let's go karting. It's like, oh man, those guys are freaking fast out there, And I love that. And I think you guys have an amazing program. I think you guys are right where you need to be. I think that, I'm proud of what you guys, and maybe I'm proud a little bit of me helping out along the way here.
Well, and hell, you've been a part of it, and just talking about the karting side specifically, as far as the arrive and drive, the sport karting side, which as far as specifically to karting, and actually, there's not a lot of the quote old guard.
No.
Still running at CalSpeed, right? As you say, things evolve,
yeah.
Right? People get older, whatnot, this other kind of stuff. But you were a part of that core group at the indoor track, at Dromo, and stuff like that.
This is what's cool here is, is Dromo. We'll say Dromo closed down for a bit. No, let me rephrase that. They didn't exist anymore.
Right.
And you guys picked up the ball. That was badass, because what occurred was that you guys were all in, you and Rob and all the other partners. I mean, you didn't know how that was going to work out. You're in a parking lot. There's a group in town that's the core group, right? But are they going to come out? Are they going to make the drive?
Sure.
Are they, what's going to happen? And you guys have steadily evolved along the way. And it's always a progression. It's always expanding. It's always getting better. It's always, you're looking to the next thing, and not looking to the next thing, you are the next thing. So you're creating the industry standard, which is badass. I think that's really cool. And I try to do that in my life, in my work, whether it's motorcycles or cars or whatever, coaching. What's the next? I mean, I want to help create that. And
Staying
at least
ahead of the curve,
yes,
goes a long way.
And you guys do that. It's so funny. It's like, I always say that I see that this is expanding always. And it was always, whether it was Dromo or whether it was the group here, I have pros in town. We're doing another program. Let's go out to CalSpeed. I'm not going, I'm going to get my ass kicked. Right. And that's true. The evolution, I know that to be true. And now, I'm getting up in age, but I've got to be calibrated. If I'm going to go do a program here, you just can't jump in the cart and go do Machismo like before. Get a couple of my wacky friends like Mike Kai and Efren to come out. And at the time you could do that. Now all of a sudden people are like, push. I mean, it's a real viable, you win a championship or a race here, you put in your time and effort.
Right.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. You've looked at the senior group, you've gotten their coaching, you've evolved. You just don't show up and run around.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real deal.
I definitely want to circle back and get more into the, like, how you got into the cars and stuff like that. But how did you get into karting? And was Dromo the first part of you getting into karting?
So no. So I called a friend of mine, Scott Atchison. He's up in Bakersfield, and he kind of was mentored by Roger Mears, and he ran Formula Ford, Super Vs, Atlantics, and then went on to Indy cars. And he's super chill, and he races motorcycles still out for the 500 and the 1,000. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, he's got his section of 300 miles, and it's always at night. And he's as quick as the 1X Honda team, and he's my age. He just absolutely hauls ass. Anyway, I remember him in the early 90s being at Houston or these, and I go, let's go find an indoor kart track. So that was a long early 90s. Mm-hmm. And I'd go out on a Wednesday night, we'd be there doing a corporate program. I remember doing a Dodge program and being I can't remember, in Texas somewhere, and I don't remember, but showing up on a Wednesday night, looking around, everybody's got sprint car shirts and late model shirts on, and it's
local boys.
Well, yeah, what are you guys doing? It's like, oh, we got a league night tonight. And it's like, oh, really? And I'd drive my ass off. I would,
right.
And just be in that. I'd learn how to get in the group and be accepted right off the bat. Or I'd show up on a Tuesday night and they go, we're racing tomorrow night. Why don't you come over? And that was early on, is always being calibrated. And I remember I was first sponsored by, in the 80s. This was probably 85, 86, 87, sponsored by Life's a Beach. And then those guys, Mark and Brian Semo, went on to No Fear.
I thought it was that, yeah.
Yeah. So they had a place down in Carlsbad, and my brother and I would go down there on a Wednesday or Thursday night. And, no, it wouldn't be Thursday, it'd be Wednesday night. And we'd have like 10 carts, and I'd get down there about 2:00 in the afternoon. And you take off work, we go down and we work on carts. And then at 5:00 it was on until, and I remember it would be like, oh shit, it's 9:30, we got to get pizza over here. And then we go till 3. We'd drive back to Glendale, and I'd go back to work in the morning.
Man.
And it was just karting for hours. I'd be black.
Yeah,
it was out. It was a commercial building. We had curbs out. Where
that's awesome.
Where the curb is, but we had curbs out there and painted them. And the Domino's pizza guy would know that we were, that you had to be careful because we're running around there.
That's awesome.
But that was in the 80s. That was in the 80s.
So you guys had your own little private thing going on with this.
It was just for fun. Yeah,
because we were all racers. We were starting in SCCA, right? Mm-hmm. And so a bunch of us, there'd be 10, 15. And then with Life's a Beach, and then with No Fear, they had whoever was in town. Like Johnny Boy Gomez would be, he's a pro surfer. If he was in town, who was actually Howie Idleston was sponsored by No Fear and Life's a Beach at one time, and he'd come down a cart. He was
wow.
He was one step above for sure. But
right.
And then there was and so we ran those, and then I was running the indoor stuff wherever I was wherever I was traveling around, yeah. And then I heard somebody said, "Oh, the No Fear guys go," and I can't remember the guy's name. His name is Dave, but he was putting 125 motocross motors in carts.
I heard the No Fear guys were just about having fun.
Always.
Didn't matter where they're at. It was a party for them.
I never knew what I was going to do. We'd surf or wakeboard or we'd kart or we'd go down there all the time, and it was just an amazing environment to go, just crazy.
That's awesome.
It's just kind of the.
So at this point, you say you were talking about SCCA and stuff like that. So I'm assuming you're in your 20s. You said 80s.
Yeah. So I was born in 57.
Carry the 30s.
Yeah.
So you get into karting.
So I was
the side.
I was really late as a motorcycle racer.
Right.
And then I would just with injuries and stuff. I was better. I did some supercross, but it was better outdoors just because I was fit.
So just carrying that timeline there, so you were doing the motorcycle stuff through your 20s then?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then I just had to quit. I tried to quit about a year and a half before, mm-hmm. and you just can't quit.
You got to go to something else.
Yeah. And so at that point I was done, and I met this girl, and we were hanging out for a couple of weeks, and she says, "I got some good news." And I said, "What?" And she goes, my boyfriend and I broke up. And I said, "Well, that's great news."
Yeah.
And she goes, "And he and I were going to go to Hawaii. He's not going. You're going." And it's like, "Well, how long are we going for?" She goes, "A couple weeks." And we ended up staying a year and 3 months.
Wow.
And then I came back, and my brother was working for an off-road race team. And I said, "I got a Toyota truck. take some pictures of some Toyotas, and I was going to turn my truck into a pre-runner or something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he got a picture, sent me a picture of a race truck, Toyota, and it had a phone number on the side, LL&R Motorsports. And so I called it and went in, talked to him. And as I was leaving, we talked about doing some work on the truck, but I left, and they called me back, answering machine, right? That was no cell phones at the time.
Yeah.
Answering machine. He said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come back tomorrow and have a meeting with us." Well, when I left, all the people in the back shop said, "That's Craig Stanton. He won all those championships and races and motorcycles." And you didn't know, and so they didn't know my background because I didn't tell them what my background was.
Right. Yeah.
And so they had this car, and it was a Sport Renault, and and now they call them Spec Racer Fords. Is what Alex drives.
Yeah.
Right.
And Alex is doing really well.
Yeah.
Right now with
Just
karting.
kicked ass this past weekend.
He did really great. I'm proud of him. And so anyway, they took payment for something with the car. Guy couldn't make a payment. Whatever. They had a car and said, "We'll help you with 10 races. We'll put you through school. You can have the car, and put you through 10 races throughout the 10 races." And I'm thinking, 10 races a month, I can do that because I'm used to the volume on the
Right.
Well, they were talking about 10 races a year, and I'm thinking that's not going to fly at all. And so we rebuilt it, went to school at Riverside, and then it was like you couldn't do a race until you went to another school. And it's like, well,
you had to get all your stuff signed off.
right.
Yeah.
And so, that was like in June, and they weren't going to have another school till November, and I was going to wait that long. And they said, "Well, there's another school up in Denver next week.
They're like, we're going.
You're like, don't mind if I do.
My brother took time off. We're headed up to Denver. We went to the next school, did our first regional, and the next week they had a Solo 1 school at Willow Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Went to that, and then the next week after that was a regional. Next week after that was, so next thing you know, the first full year we did 49 events, and the next year, full year, we did 52 or something.
And this is all in the Spec Racer Ford?
Yeah.
Do you remember how many sign-offs you had to have to go do a regional race?
It was 2 schools, and I think you're on probation for 3.
Okay.
Is that right? I think so. I think that you had to
mind
do,
your P's and Q's for those 3 races.
Yeah, you had to do 3 regionals to be a national ranked driver, I think.
So on Thursday, Mike's going to know where I'm going with this. We're listening to the Borisette interview. And he's talking about how he forged all of his sign-offs.
Oh, that's on the Dinner with Racers.
Dinner with Racers,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And
he's a great guy, by the way.
oh, really cool dude. He was out here with this kid karting this last weekend. So the kid's starting to drive, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, he was at Dromo. He was a whole No Fear Life's a Beach.
Yeah.
He ran SCCA showroom stock in a Camaro.
Right.
Fast.
But yeah, he was just saying, he's like, I don't want to keep going to school. I want to go race. So
Yeah.
he just looked at the signature, forged it, and got racing.
He went for it, yeah.
So you end up going and you're doing the Spec Racer Ford.
Well, I went, yeah. So I come back and end up doing the Spec Racer Ford, and I practice every Friday. So my brother and I would, and I knew that I was not going to get any sponsorship because through the motorcycle stuff as an amateur, I wasn't going to get any sponsorship. So I became a contractor. So
I was going to ask what you were going to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I became a contractor. So we tried to make it back in town. So we ran Southern California region, Cal Club region, Northern California region, Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona.
Was your brother a part of this
He was.
the whole time?
He was. Yeah, he was for many years. He's really super crafty. I don't know if you've ever met him or not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, Drew's dad. He, it's like, you're so smart. It's like, I grew up under the same house, under the same roof. We went to the same school, and you know all this shit. He's a fabricator, pyrotechnician, special effects.
Wow.
Neat. Okay.
All sorts of stuff. He's really.
Wow.
But as we went through the Spec Racer Ford, then there was one year early on that we did a Formula Mod. They called it Star Mods at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we ran a midget in the dirt.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So we were like,
That sounds kind of fun.
we were
How
like,
do those opportunities pop up? If you're doing the other thing full time, basically.
just being at the track. I was going to say that to you. Mm-hmm. You guys are at the track. Magic happens at the track. So the more I'm at the track, I mean, every Friday, my brother, he gets tired of taking times because it's just banging it off, And then all of a sudden you're meeting people. The people that I got the Spec Racer Ford from were always in drag cars. They were always in Trans Am, environments. They're always, so they opened a lot of doors for me. And then, you're at the track, Matt, shit just happens.
One casual conversation goes a long way.
Long ways.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're seeing a team, they're testing every Friday. And now all of a sudden I'm testing every Friday. And now we're at the races, and we're at the kind of the pointy end, most of the time. And people just go, can you test, or I meet somebody? I mean, I remember going up to Sonoma once every other week, just at lunch for an hour to test Star Mazda cars.
Wow.
I drive up in the morning, early in the morning.
Yeah.
Just for an hour and a half to test 3 cars, and then I drive back. Just for the opportunity.
Now that's dedication, 'cause that's a shit drive.
Yeah. but that's like such a perfect example of the sacrifice right there, and it's keeping your name around.
But my brain just loves that stuff.
I know, 100%.
Like yours, right?
It's
just
awesome.
like you guys would drive to Sonoma for a...
Well, I don't know if I would do that.
Yeah.
I might fly.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's like at the time, and then it's all of a sudden, it's like, then people would go, well, you can test the car. I was involved with Hawk brake testing. I was involved with, tire testing along the way with Hoosiers, because all of a sudden now I'm doing a lot of volume. I'm calibrated in, and after 15 laps, I can do the same lap for 4 days. So Michelin, Hoosier, Continental, a brake company, teams, I can just bang them off.
Would you say that the majority of the opportunities you've gotten, or at least even been able to carry out from the years, is more about being at the track and obviously being able to knock out consistent laps, etc., is huge for a test driver, that kind of stuff. Would you say it's more about maybe being there, being a part of it, etc.? It has more to do with you and that than it does necessarily your results on things? It's not that you've won championships or any of these other kind of things, but it's who you are, personality and otherwise, and then what you're able to do just behind the car versus results? Yes,
because there's years where Porsche wasn't. I was kind of pigeonholed as a Porsche driver, right? Since 95. I would say that, yeah. And I never wanted to adapt my personality. It just was, I just loved every freaking piece of it. I love coming out here. This is any hierarchy. I don't look at anything as a hierarchy. This weekend at NASA, IMSA, karting, it's all the same. Mm-hmm. So when I was always calibrated in, to be calibrated in, it was either testing, either testing, coaching, karting, or racing every 5 days a week. And then I was training as well. So back in the, early days of, being on the road and finding an indoor kart track, to Dromo and being with that crew, that was funny. And you coming down from Portland,
right?
That was like, oh God, and watching you, because you had a different style. Because I was used to, Efren and Mike Kai and Diego and the Cambrels, and I mean that, and there's more, Robin Deans, all those people.
This is all the information you're taking in that helps you with testing.
All of it.
Yeah.
It's all the same, man. It's if I can get calibrated in at Dromo, if I can come out here, get calibrated in some indoor kart track at Houston or, in Charlotte or something. You go down to Charlotte on a Wednesday night, you better be on your game like here.
Right.
Because those boys, there's a bunch of kids out there that absolutely haul ass. I used to watch them come down to Dromo from Portland, from Oregon, and I wanted to see how they did it because they're from another track. I get stuck watching all these guys and get kind of pigeonholed, and they would do it different.
Yeah.
And he was talking about Willie Musgrave, and Billy, and they'd come down with a shifter, do things a little different because they're motocross guys, right?
Yeah.
And I do that when I race in the rain. It's more of a motocross line, I don't have any grip with a long radius. I can come down, square off, and come out straighter, and use that extra weight in the rear of a Porsche to be able to squat down and accelerate off straight.
Right.
You got a little bit of wheel, and it's gonna just like a shifter. But if you can come off straighter, you can more throttle, more RPM, as opposed to short shifting and try to tiptoe through a long skatey turn.
Right.
Taking that long way around is a little bit nicer.
Yeah. But my point is that I think that when we get pigeonholed as a human, as a bumping along, there's nothing wrong with it. I think is when you really expand, when you really want to expand, you get outside the box. And there's there's infinite ways. You can, the inside of the box is a way, and then you have an infinite amount of expressions. There's no humans. There's no two humans alike, right?
Right. I guess one way. I mean, I've always thought of it as kind of having an influence.
Totally. Totally.
On one direction or another.
Well, that's where coaching is really good.
Yeah.
You get that kind of relationship. Or whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you get to bring that person along. It's so interesting in the cars when you're, like you and I, we're really connected here because I can hear you guys breathe. I can hear you cough. I can hear you. We're really connected right now in many, many ways. There's an energetic, and also there's the, our ears are closer than we're normally, and so in the cars you can hear somebody, grunt because I got a back pain. I'm scared.
Right.
There's some limits. There's some chaos going on. There's some ego, and to be able to be in an expansion mode, you've got to work on those things.
Yeah.
To be able to learn and grow.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that it's when you can figure out that there's a hell of a lot more to driving than just driving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you for sure. Yeah.
You had actually mentioned earlier about the, you got there's a pie. And the lap time is only a part of it. Yeah. You got so much other, and that's kind of the same stuff that I'll talk to some of the guys that have either on sport carts or whatever, but just guys that I have or drivers, some ladies as well, that I have coaching relationships with, and a lot of it is their frame of mind.
Yeah.
Oh, you had a bad night last night, or a bad morning, or fight or whatever, some issue, and you bring that to the track. You're already uphill.
Yeah.
We got to hit that reset button. We got to do something different.
Yep.
And like you'd mentioned about all these different things that are out there. Are you eating well? Did you drink too much last night?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is,
I remember I was at end of the year. I don't know what year it was, but I was racing motorcycles, and I was really close. I could have two races before the end of the year. I could have clinched a championship, and for some reason, and it's just one of those life lessons, right? I went out the night before and partied. And I was hungover the next day, and I could have clinched the championship that day. And I almost threw up in my helmet. It was horrible. I mean, it was like well off my game. And I realized, racing and evolving and being a racer and going after championships. You have to. I always think about a championship as you honor that. You honor a race. Like the other night, it's a 6-hour up at Miller. I mean, I honor the ability to be able to do what I do, to bring that team along. They give me their trust to win a race. I mean, that's massive.
Yeah.
And you just, to be able to be in that position is a gift, and so I realized that day, that was one of those turning points where it's like, oh, right, I have to honor the ability. I have a gift. I have the ability to be able to go after a championship, and it's serious. I mean, I take it serious, right?
It's neat you say that too. You feel honored because I remember I felt the same way. The first Machismo I did, I got hit by 2 teams, and I'd actually already committed to the first one.
Yeah.
And the second team was with Casey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna go do that one, but I didn't think anyone cared about me, or thought about me that way.
Yeah.
So that's
cool.
It's really neat to have those moments.
Yeah. It's twofold, right? I mean, you said 2 different things. You said honor and you said gift, and I think that if you're an individual doing it by yourself, you just pull the bike out of the back of the pickup and you do it. You're honoring yourself. You're not honoring anybody else. Mm-hmm. If you're on a team, it's okay. Let's say that went out and partied. Well, you're letting yourself down, the team down, the sponsors down, that whatever it is that's going on by not giving your whole because they are. Right, so there's that honoring of that. Mm-hmm. Then there's also, to your point about the gift and the honor about the championship. You may or may not have the opportunity to be in this position again
for a long while.
Yeah.
Or again.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. It could be the only. It starts with the races. Mm-hmm. Every success, every little thing that you do.
Yeah.
It may be the last one that you get a chance to do. Mm-hmm. Like for me, being such a shit qualifier, I get a pole position. I'm like. Yeah. Are you kidding me right now?
You got signed
awesome.
Another race.
Yeah, exactly. Feels good.
But it's why I love it, or like having the perfect week or weekend or whatever. Those races, those things that happen, I cherish them. Because, God, I mean, those are the ones that you never know they're going to happen again if they do, and it's so few and far between where shit all falls in line.
Yeah,
because it's not like you're the only hot talent out there or whatever. You got
to take a moment and appreciate what just happened.
Hell yeah.
Goes a long way.
For sure. It's awesome. You know, at the pointy end of any series, any championship, the top 5 guys, 6 guys, you know, what's interesting is you got to learn how to be 10th, and you got to learn how to be in the top 5, and then there you got to learn how to be 4th, and you got to learn how to be 3rd, 2nd, and you got to learn how to win, and along the way, and having those moments where being in that position to learn each step, and every race, every series has a rhythm. Doesn't matter whether it could be a late model program in Charlotte, it could be out here in sport carts. It's all the same. Yeah, it's all the same intensity to win a championship. And motocross, surfing, whatever it is, it's the same. It's the same thing. So you learn how to win a championship, and it's a gift.
It's not a one-off deal.
No.
Yeah.
You showed up every day. You had the best. You had the best score, mean average of the year, and you could break it even down to laps. How was your laps? The best mean average. You know, you got the best carts. There's a little bit of a luck of the draw,
but you made the most out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there on the grid, and you know, the sanctioning body on pre-grid, you know, it's usually like 5 before the 5, and so I get in the car, just kind of getting in my space, and all of a sudden it's like 3, and like 3 minutes to go, and then it's 1, and the guy that was helping me get in the car goes, "We gotta go." So completely closes the door and abandons me. And there's a triangle net that hooks up because we run Windows, so we don't need the full net. The radio is on the other side of the console, and so and all of a sudden want to go, and now he's releasing the whole grid.
Oh Jesus!
And I'm like, we got spotters. It's going into the night. I mean, I'm effed. You know, and I'm getting it, making sure everything's here, and I'm making sure my cool suit and the button is like, it's like a computer. You push the button and then it takes a while to boot up. Well, I'm like pushing it like on and off, because I'm like going crazy for a second. Yeah. Time and space is different. Like when we go racing, right? You guys are a bunch of racers.
Right.
So time and space. So it's almost all the way around the lap. I'm radar check 1 2 1 2. You know, because I got my nephew Drew. You guys met him. Yeah. Drew's cool. And then another guy, Lou, and Lou is, you know, those guys are spotting for us and stuff. It was perfect. And I'm thinking we need spotters. My client needs spotters. You know, the Thomas Merrill at the end of the run needs spotters. And so anyway,
it'd be good if the radio worked.
It worked. I couldn't see if it was on. So I just needed to calm down, chill, breathe, and just
give it a little more time.
And all of a sudden, where you been? Where have you been? Oh my God!
You got it before
that was
the
a
green
shitstorm. Yeah, it all worked out and had a great start. And
man,
I wanted to get it. We qualified 3rd, and within 2 laps, I wanted to push to get up and set the pace early.
Yeah,
and control the race.
To have a situation like that, like what we actually just had a situation this weekend where we had an issue. Like Derek found a broken chassis. Like 10 minutes before the green flag of the main. Yeah. And I'm doing something else. Runs over here, snags me, run down there. We start pounding it back together, tack welding some shit in there, trying to get it going, all this other kind of stuff. Get it up as like the white flag's coming out for the previous session. Like it's time to go.
Oh yeah.
And like what we always do, and Derek did it this time, was like gets to the driver's like, all right, deep breath, hit the reset button. Yeah. It's all good, baby. Relax. It's like having that opportunity, like, okay, all that shit happened. When you start getting worked up, it's okay, you start getting frantic instead of thinking about what you need to do. And if you can calm down, like you said, oh, I just need to click.
And luckily you're a veteran and you know what you're doing, so you knew to take that second to chill out, right?
Well,
or losing your marbles, and then like say a rookie or whatever loses his marbles, and then there's no radio at all.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. That's a great lesson. People go, "What's your favorite? What's your favorite? What's your favorite race?" It's like, dude, there's races are all every week almost. At one point in my life, there was 35 years of racing every week. Right. But really the moments like that are what like gets me goosebumps now.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
It's like I do have great races and I'm grateful for the wins and championships. But the time I got goosebumps again, times like those when you can chill yourself out and just get back to business at hand. Yeah. Coming back from a wreck, coming back from a big injury. Yeah. And knowing that, you got to perform at your, A++ game. That's those moments are like brilliant.
That reminds me of the every single time I think about those kind of things, we talk about this kind of thing, is the baseball movie. I know I've said it before. The Clear the Mechanism.
Oh,
yeah.
for the love of the game.
For the love of the game.
I
Yeah.
love that. Where everything goes.
He just silences the whole
It's
crowd
brilliant.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
That's so cool.
I mean, that's what this is all about, right? It doesn't matter whether we're at IMSA, we're at NASCAR, we're karting, sport kart, whatever, machismo. It's all the same. It's whether it's surfing, skiing, tennis, golf. When you're in that moment, that's the infinite wisdom right there. That's the flow, the truth, the freedom of what we do, right? We just want to get back to that moment. All the other stuff is like in our I can't. It's that yes, no, blah, blah, blah. But when we chill out and just feel that flow and that rhythm, and that's quiet, and all of a sudden you're learning and you're expressing, and there's no time and space, and it's just, that's the goods, man.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
That's the goods. Yeah.
Going back to your racing stuff here, and so it sounds like you get into, again, it's so cool hearing some of the stories from different people about how they get into the cars or whatnot.
Yeah.
As you said, late start. So you did the motocross thing through 20s. Sounds like the early 30s stuff is when you start getting the spec racer deal. And then you and your brother really get after it, and you're racing all over the place in that deal. How does that transition? And I guess you're in the 90s at this point with the
late 80s, early 90s
for the car stuff. Mm-hmm. How long do you do that spec racer program and whatnot? And at what point do you kind of go, man, I might be able to go somewhere with this thing, or maybe I can go to that next level?
Yeah, it was my thought process. I always think back. It's like back in those days, it was ready, fire, aim. Today it's like, oh, should I get in this business? Let's do a whole deep dive into, is this business viable? Is it something I want to do? Blah blah. Back then it was like ready, fire, aim. What?
Spontaneity.
There's a test. I can go to Sonoma. I can hop on a plane and drive a car all day long out in Charlotte, or I can do a late model program for six blocks. It was that scheduling my calendar, and away I went. Mm-hmm. But it was so I was the gal that I went to Hawaii with. Mm-hmm. She parted ways, and then I might have run amok for a while, and then I did, and then I met Joy, and then we ended up having a long relationship, it's a 30-year relationship. We got married and stuff, but I want to give a little bit of a shout out to her. I mean, we built this together. We built my career together.
Gotcha.
Right.
And it was, she is an intuitive woman. She was an athlete. She is an athlete. She was a nationally ranked rower.
Wow.
So we lived in an environment of, eating right. It's mind, body, spirit, the whole thing. And so we would course correct all the time. It was, a lot of it was, there's a big piece of the puzzle that was all her, in terms of helping me out. I was able to race. The moment that I was making really good money, I was able to pay for all this stuff.
Is this the contracting stuff?
Because I was a contractor,
Gotcha.
right? And then there was a moment where I said, I am able to be a pro. And, she's like, are you sure? And I said, I can make money at this. And it was early 90s. And I was running SSGT, which is the Camaro program that Boris ran for so many years.
Okay.
And there was that and some other series. Anyway,
how did you transition from the and what was the decision making from the spec racer?
It was a spec racer Ford Sport Renault at the time. Mm-hmm. It was just I just met people along the way that wanted. I knew that I had to move on. I knew that I wasn't going to progress without going to another class.
Were you kind of the hot shit in spec racer Ford?
Yeah.
Like you were the guy to beat?
One of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of them. Anyway, so I knew that I had to move up, and just because of people that I met, there were stock car programs and there were midget programs and there were sprint car programs, and I would follow my nose on people that I met. And with the SSGT program, there was a car owner, and I maintained the car. And he ran the regionals, and I ran the nationals.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
So that's kind of how that went. And then through another contact, they were very much the stock car, the Trans Am, the midget program, and so They, there was opportunities like Thursday Night Thunder was up at Ventura.
Right.
And they had a 12-week program.
Were
I
you
loved
doing
watching
the,
that
Yeah.
on ESPN too. That was awesome.
Yeah.
you said earlier you're doing Pro Mazda and midgets on the dirt. Was that during, or was that towards the end of the SRF stuff?
Yeah. It was after.
Oh, it was after. Okay.
It was after. So there was a couple of years where we were running. I mean, I have to look at my resume, but there was years we were running stock cars, midgets, SSGT cars. I mean, anyway, so with the SSGT Camaro program, you could run a Mustang, a Camaro, and Firebird, I think is what it was. And in that, there was a year period that we had almost 17 people in this area in Camaros and Firebirds and
That's
Mustangs.
awesome.
Wow.
Crazy. All the No Fear guys, it was out of control. Anyway, one of the guys was part owner of a ad agency in Phoenix, and they did all the corporate stuff for Infinity. And they asked me, I was doing construction. They asked me, I said, "What's performance on the cars?" And they said, "It's a ad agency that they were putting everybody in the Infinity dealerships, from secretaries to mechanics, everybody through these week and a half programs." So and part of it was driving the cars, understanding what they do when braking, accelerating, turning.
Make him a hell of a lot better dealer.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So it was like 4 days of driving.
They had to
And
experience it.
So Proformance, Ken Twaits and Mark Mitchell were already working for that company. And they both were racing in SSGT. And they said, "This is an opportunity of a lifetime. It's a Sunday night at 5, 6 o'clock." And they said, "Can you get on a plane tomorrow and come over and take one of the guys' places?" And I said, "Sure." I mean, I was building a 3-story, 5,200 square foot house. And I said, "Yeah, I'll hop on a plane." And I went over there and worked the week, and they offered me a job, and
Wow.
just doing ride and drives. And I came back and I shuffled. I was sleeping like 4 hours a night. I'd come into town and I'd work. Maybe I'd had cars to prep. Sometimes I'd be running 2 and 3 series. I had stock cars and midgets and SSGT cars and Star Mazdas all in the backyard with transporters and trailers.
Oh, and by the way, you have a construction company, or a contracting company.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so trying to make all that happen. Finally, I just told Joy, I said, I think I can make a living at it. So we went from pretty high on, I was at extra money, even with all this racing going on. I was paying for everything because it was easier for me to pay than it was to get a sponsor. Because I had, you work hard at keeping a sponsor.
Heck
For
yeah.
sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a job.
Really hard. It's a job. And so I sold my construction company to my foreman, and then I started doing ride and drives. And we went from pretty high on the hog to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, top ramen.
Steak dinners every night.
And
too.
I'm grateful
Yeah.
for her to hang in there. And it wasn't easy. And, I remember being in an Italian restaurant one night, and we shared a spaghetti plate dinner. And we'd go to this one restaurant over in Hollywood because while you were waiting, they had free wine.
Yeah, and we're not talking Lady and the Tramp here. It wasn't all romantic and whatnot. It was like, well, that's what we could afford to eat.
Yeah, that's what it was, right? And so I remember
Get filled up in wine and
fill up in wine because it's free, and then order split one plate,
Uh-huh.
and then all the bread you can eat. And I remember we got the last piece of bread, and I dropped it, and we both went, "Holy shit!"
That's how you know.
That's it. That's how you know.
That's a sacrifice.
Thank you, yes.
And the dedication there. And to your point, and I also shout out to my wife Becky because
She's awesome, by the way.
yeah, she is, and she knows it. And having that support, because I know you know a ton of drivers, a ton of people who make those sacrifices to get in, and also the kinds of stuff. To do it on your own, that's challenging.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine, because I know even in what I was trying to do to go racing or follow my passion or whatever, to do that by yourself, at some point maybe it gets a little bit tough, and you're like, oh man, maybe I can't do it. But then you get that support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I remember having 2 cars in the garage in our shop in Glendale, and then we had a flat pad I poured. Concrete was perfectly flat for all the adjustments and setups and stuff. I remember being under a tarp, pouring down freaking rain in a midget on the stands, putting a motor in underneath the tarp. Not even an easy up, just a tarp. Going,
They're not waterproof.
holy, oh my God! And her coming out, getting underneath the tarp and giving me a plate of
Wow.
Plate of food, yeah. It's badass.
That's all in.
All in.
That's awesome.
All freaking in. Yeah, no question. I just didn't want to quit.
When does it get to the point where, like, actually, this is working out pretty good?
So it goes on to, I was a lead driver and a manager of a endurance Nissan team.
What year was that, you think, around?
95-ish.
Okay.
94, 95, and doing really well. So managing that program and the lead driver and doing a lot of racing, and then still doing some stock car stuff. I was up in Ventura running a shop, a Trans Am shop. I remember going up there on a Monday and coming back on a Friday and then going to the races there, for Trans Am.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot. Just organizing a team, having all these cars that were 3 Trans Am team within the team.
So were you driving the Trans Am
I was
stuff?
doing all the testing, and that was the carrot that they gave
Gotcha.
me. I did all the testing, all the, we bet in tires and brakes and, rotors, and we did all the testing. I remember being out at Willow going around for 4 days in a pair of shorts with all the bodywork off a Trans Am car on the skid pad.
Wow.
Look at it, geometry and A-arms, A-arm geometry and shocks, and just round and around and around and around.
Man.
There was a point there where I was working for the Nissan team, and then I had a sponsor, and his name is Mark Weber. And Mark is awesome. He's a developer, commercial, and he was racing in POC, and I was his coach.
Okay.
And so it seemed like back at POC pre, those days, it was like, the pro drivers, one of his friends was sponsoring Billy Oberlin. Somebody else was sponsoring somebody else on the West. So it was like, well, my racehorse is,
I gotcha.
So it was the ego trip on, and that's where Mark said, the more you drive, the better you are. And so that's where he started pumping me with karting, and I had a tag, 2 tags and a shifter, ICC, and nice. I'd go up to Willow on a Tuesday, and I'd
bang laps out all day, huh?
Nobody be there. I mean, it'd be hot as hell, and I'd show up at 7 and go over, and I'd start running long runs, and then I'd be prepping along the way, so I wouldn't have to prep the cart when I got back home. And I'd prep it along the way, and then somewhere around 11:30 or 12, I'd run up the top of the hill at Willow. Run to it, and then it'd be, it's a pretty good hike up to the top, and I'd come down, take a bath, take a shower, and head back to Long Beach. I did that a lot, lap after lap after lap, rain, shine.
So you're testing the Trans Am team
Yeah.
cars. You're getting all those prepped. Are you just testing, or are you racing them?
No, not racing.
Okay.
So I was going to the races, and it was weird because I knew all the tracks, right? By this time I'm running all the road racing, all the endurance, street stock stuff.
Yeah.
Motorola Cup, Firehawk, Escort, all that stuff, and put down 24-hour races at Mosport. And I'm testing, and I'm faster than the drivers, right? But it was a Chevrolet or Pontiac deal, so that's the ride, right?
But that's kind of your bread and butter, and then you got the sponsor for the Nissan stuff.
Yep, and then from there we were testing out at Willow.
Okay.
And I was testing all the Nissan cars out at Willow.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony Callis, who I drove for last Saturday night.
Oh, cool. Oh, this is what you mentioned about.
He was there getting ready for Daytona, right? With Johnny Mullen and David Murray. I mean, both factory drivers, right? From Europe and America.
Yeah.
It's a Mark Webber. It's like, I come in, from running around doing a long run in one of the Nissans, and come in, and he goes, "You're going to get out of this car and you're going to go get in that Porsche over there, and I got 10 grand that says you're going to be faster and you're going to kick their asses." And I went, "Whoa, that's Johnny Mullen and David Murray. Are you serious? Like this? You're not." "Oh yeah, I got 10 grand down on you." And he went up and talked to Tony Callis and said, "My driver over there, I got 10 grand on my driver, says he's faster than your 2 drivers over here." And so I went over and talked to Tony. I said, "Tony, we're not doing this." I said, well, I'm not getting in that car. I'm not going to burn your car down. You're going to Daytona here in 2 weeks with the boys. You need a good car. We're not going to go out there and have a
do this bullshit
ego challenge.
Yeah. And so he really appreciated it. And he said, I'm going to call you tomorrow and we'll talk about some stuff. Because he watched me all day long, right? Magic at the track. So
he says that, and at the end of the conversation, when he says he's going to call you, do you turn around? Do you have a little bit of a grin on your face? Or are your mind's kind of working?
I was working. I had 2 more cars to set up, and I tried to dissolve that so I didn't have to worry about stuff.
Yeah, don't think about it yet.
Yeah, but then Tony and I talked about it, and he says, "Look, we got only 1 car for Daytona, And then after Daytona, that back then, you bought a cup car, narrow body car, and then after Daytona, because you want the straight line speed, then you made it a wide body car for Sebring and beyond. The rest of the year was all this wide body, extra body,
more
work,
downforce, and
more
whatnot.
downforce, bigger wing, and everything. You just wanted the slippery car during Daytona. Anyway, what happened is the owner didn't get any time, knowing Johnny Mullen and David Murray, who are great friends of mine. Knowing them, the owner didn't get any time, so it became, after Daytona for Sebring, we became a 2-car team. And so so we talked right after that day out at Willie. He goes, "You're a straight up guy. Thank you for not putting my team through that drill." And there might be he goes, "Well, see how the year goes." Well, they called right after Daytona and said, "We're going to go to a 2-car team. We may need your help." And so
because the owner wants to get some seat time.
Yeah, and so Sebring came a month later, and Mark called up Tony and said, "I got $10,000 that says my boy's going to go with you down at Sebring." So I went to Sebring and ended up third. And the guys in the number 1 car didn't even finish it. Broke the car. It was way too stiff and broke everything.
Wow.
So it ended up third right off the giddy up.
That's awesome.
And then went on, and Mark was paying $5,000 a race. And then somewhere around Atlanta, they had a big deal for me. They said, "Wait a second." Tony said to Joel, the owner, "He's as fast as the factory guys. We got to start paying him."
Mm-hmm.
And so they made a big deal, and they had a big party
Awesome.
halfway through the year and said, "You're going to get paid." And I just flipped.
How old were you at this time?
It was in 98.
Okay.
Need a calculator.
98.
98.
But you go 20s, doing motorcycles, stuff like that. You got to stop doing motorcycles because you're getting hurt and it's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
But you're never going to stop racing. You get into the car stuff, and then just by sheer determination and, like you said earlier, following your nose, getting into anything and everything that's got wheels on it and just going and doing all kinds of neat shit.
Yeah.
And basically always being the second person in line to just keep your foot in the door, etc. You get this scenario, and you become a hell of a driver all along the way and keep getting better and better to the point where you're better than equal to potentially faster in a particular scenario than maybe the cats in the number 1 car.
Yeah.
That you are a now factory driver, and at damn near 40 or right about 40, you are a quote pro in the late 90s.
Yeah.
For a kid that got out of high school, did the college thing, and walked into that off-road shop. Mm-hmm. Did you ever look back on that? Just right at that moment, had that big old party, whatnot. I come back to see Joy, or whatever. Like, can you freaking believe this right now? Can you freaking believe that this is where I'm at?
It's crazy. That's why I come back here and I coach, and I come back here. I go to other kart tracks. I go to out to the desert off-road stuff still. That intrigues me. I mean, everything, there's no it's the same. It's all the same. And to be able to watch what occurred and how it all occurred, that's why I'm grateful. That's why I'm absolutely freaking grateful every day for this. Just like, I got to pinch myself. And I do it for people that always wanted to do it, couldn't do it, they don't have the stick, whatever the story is.
Right.
And that's why, and create experiences for other people to experience as well, to be able to have them experience what I experience every day.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
That's absolutely nuts that you get a chance to do that. And then now you're
up and running.
You're a factory driver.
Yeah.
You're going racing.
And this is a Porsche team.
It's a Porsche team.
And they dictate what you do basically at that point. What races you're going to do. So you're a little bit less following nose at this point.
I was never
right?
a factory driver, and I realized with the bikes. I mean, I was with the factory drivers, but I wasn't a factory driver, and I realized that I wasn't going to be a factory driver, and all these other Americans are thinking they're going to be Patrick Long, right? Well, Patrick's Patrick. There's nobody,
He's one and only.
He's
right?
the one and only, right? So people are like, even in Europe, there's a reason that the drivers are the drivers, right? And there's only going to be one Patrick. There's only going to be one American representative. Now there might be a couple people in the farm leagues that are like, but it's Patrick's there because in the American arena, he's well spoken. He has a great name for himself. He's been in it for years. He has a charisma. He has a brand. It's always been that way because the Germans come over, and it's me, like with the Ferrari guys, we speak the American language. Patrick speaks the American language.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the Germans don't, but they speak the German language. So,
Right. You're going to have a representative for each
absolutely.
Zone, if you will,
Yeah.
each
and
area.
Patrick hauls ass, and he's a karter, and that's why.
He's been out here a lot lately,
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
just trying to
I
get
just
back
saw
in
him.
shape for the car.
Yeah. And so he's smart, right? Because everything happens so much quicker than a car.
Yeah.
And he needs to be fit. He needs to, and he needs to calibrate the internal gyro in his eyes and, hand-eye coordination, and it's nothing better, right? And that's how he brought Patrick Dempsey along too. So they did a lot here, I think, and they did a lot up in Oxnard, up at Jim Hall.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
So Patrick's, evolution was a lot of karting.
When you're doing all when you're getting rolling on the car race and stuff like that, and you corrected me there with you not being a factory driver but being a part of the Porsche game there. Were you still able to kind of do what you wanted to do as far as race teams or whatever, or did you kind of hey, Craig, these are the races you can do, boom, or you still had kind of free reign to go do what you wanted to? You just got paid when you were with those particular people?
Yeah. So, I just went from team to team. I was an independent contractor. And so I tried to have a contract somewhere around August, September for the next year.
So it was just a year contract at that.
Yeah. And
essentially.
sometimes more. Mm-hmm. And then,
for that first deal though, it was
for Riser Callis.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a race to race deal.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden it ended up 2 years, and then ended up 3 years.
That's awesome.
And then Dennis Ossie saw me and wanted me he didn't want any of his, I was coaching a lot back then because POC, Porsche Owners Club, and PCA was really active in Southern California. So there was a lot of, and it was just easy to coach there.
Right.
It was really easy to coach. And so I'm racing and I'm coaching.
Yeah,
and
it's the best thing you can do as a racer and be a coach, I think.
Yeah.
Because it just helps you sharpen your skills. And
no question.
You make yourself so aware of what you're doing.
Because
you got to go tell the other guy what he's
verbalize
doing
it,
wrong,
right? Yeah.
So
that's why you're a good driver, and that's why both, because you got to verbalize it, and then you verbalize it in your head, and you anchor it in. Right. And you noodle over it. Yeah. And then you fine tune your coaching skills, and then it translates right back to your driving.
100%.
That was really interesting, and just going from one team to the next. And we didn't talk about my fitness much, but every year I would schedule in 1 or 2 24-hour mountain bike races or adventure races.
I saw you.
What is a 24-hour mountain bike? Is that
actually,
you, or are you swapping off with
so
other guys?
You can do solo events, but that actually
would think.
shortens your life. That's a rough one. But it would be 2 or 3 other people,
Man.
and it'd be just like Daytona. And so it all that, how how you bring yourself back, you thrash yourself on a an hour and a half loop, and then essentially you're back on deck in 4 hours or 3 hours. So you've got to recover, rest, and get yourself going again.
Not dissimilar to the car stuff.
Exactly like the car stuff.
Yeah.
So I just hung around a lot of athletes, and we did adventure races, which was multi-sport. So it's climbing, orienteering with a compass, mountain biking, hiking, running, rappelling, kayaking, all in a 24-hour period of time.
Wow.
So that was just, I'd schedule in races like that. So the group that I raced with were always training. That was their thing. Mm-hmm. So I would train before work at the track. I'd have a bike in the transporter. I'd run it. Whatever it was, I'd always stay super fit.
You actually told me once that that you were doing the 24-hour race. Mm-hmm. I think it was Daytona.
Yeah.
And you'd get down with your stint, and you'd go jump on the bike and start riding around.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would, Joy was there. She was great in the 24-hour race, and she would be right there. So if I go out there for I'd be out there for 3 hours or something, mm-hmm. and then I'd be all jacked up, and I'd want to talk to everybody, hug everybody. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Anyway, so I would spend too much time in the pits. I would look at my tires, talk to the guys, how's it going? Talk to the engineer. Next thing you know,
what have you been up to the last 3 hours?
Yeah. Next thing I know, it's an hour, and then next thing I know, it's like, well, I don't have a golf cart, And then I've got to go to the motorhome, and I don't have anything to eat. Now I've got to go to the caterer. And so Joy would be there, and she'd be like, here's your rocket fuel. And then here's a plate of food. And we'd go back and get adjustment, chiropractor, get a massage, and then rest for a little bit. I wouldn't sleep, but probably rest. And then I'd be on deck, and that's where I'd hop on the bike, or I'd hop on a trainer.
Just get warmed up, yeah.
Yeah, because now you're on deck. And
how long before you get in the car do you start riding the bike?
An hour.
Okay.
Yeah, just to move, jumping jacks,
wake your
burpees,
body back up,
squats, whatever.
Man, that makes a hell of a lot more sense. I remember doing the 24 Hours of Charlotte.
Yeah.
And you do your stint or whatever, and I was running for two different teams and all sorts of kinds of crap.
Wow.
And you lay down and you go to sleep, and when you wake up and you feel like you haven't been to sleep at all, right? Because it's shit sleep and all sorts of kind of stuff. But then I remembered what I was trying to do to get back into the zone to go karting, to get back into the cart. And that actually makes a great amount of sense. To get on the bike, do something active, get the blood flowing a little bit, wake yourself up a little bit, even if it was just a rest or whatever. I would think that would be a hell of a lot hard. I don't know how you would just go in cold for car stuff.
Super hard.
Middle of the night, cold, right? That would just be...
It's one thing, you're like, hey, we have an issue, wake up, you're driving.
Yeah.
Right, which seemed to always happen to me. But.
Yeah.
but to know
it's
that...
hard. That's really... It's like playing a video game, pressing pause and going and getting a sandwich, and then sitting back down and pressing pause.
100%. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Try to get right back into the rhythm.
Hard.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I started this early on, is I would do a 24-hour simulation, and I'd be in Long Beach, for instance. And so I'd start at 3:30 like the normal race would start, and I'd go out and I'd ride for an hour and a half. And that was no big deal, but what I would do is I would come back and I would have my recovery food, and Joy would make it, or I'd have a pre-packaged food, and then I'd try to lay down for an hour. Then all of a sudden I'd have my rocket fuel, get on the spin bike or whatever, and then I'd go run for an hour and a half. And it wasn't about the ability, it was about the ability to recover, relax, and then get yourself going again.
Up and down.
Absolutely.
Up and down.
And I'd do that for 24 hours. So then, I'd have a bowl or a basket, and I'd put all the different activities: running, rowing, surfing, running, riding, sand and stairs, or get on the sim. Or climbing. I had a climbing wall in the backyard. So I would just pick out things, and this is my schedule. And it wouldn't matter what schedule it was. It would matter. And in the middle of the night, I would sit on a sim for an hour and a half, there at the house.
Were you
But what I do is I do it for 24 hours, but just a different activity, just to do something for an hour and a half.
Simulate the blood, the
rocket fuel, recovery, and then get back going again.
Your body's kind of going through the activity is the being in the car, and then now I got to come down from that, then I got to build back up to that, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
How much of that is mentally going through the motions, and then mentally you're kind of shut off at a point, if you will, and you're just doing it
in between?
Yeah.
That's a good point. I love that. In adventure racing with my team that I raced with, there was a point there, and I think it happens in SEAL training, where you just surrender.
Gotcha.
You just surrender. Just, okay, this is my activity for the next 4 days.
Right.
Just surrender and not fight it. I did that a little bit Saturday night. It was like a little bit of chaos, not bad, but a little bit where a heightened state of awareness, people are running around and stuff, and you kind of feel the energy. And then all of a sudden it's like, normally it'd be like, I'm pretty wound up and pretty like heart jumping out of my chest.
Just naturally.
And then all of a sudden it was interesting to be able, my partner now is a life coach, breath coach. We call her a performance coach, and about 11 of my clients see her. And she's great. It's mind, body, spirit, right? So she organizes all of that.
Do you find yourself being a better driver at one stint versus another? Nighttime guy, morning guy? At the
time, if I was to be authentic, now I'm 62, I think that maybe those night stints, if I go from the pits to dark, if it goes from dusk, I don't mind looking right into the welding arc, the sun.
I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, if I'm going from there to there, it's the same amount of time. Same. But if I jump right in and not have much time, then it's like, there's some laps there that I need to get my bearings.
Right.
And then also too is at night for me is the internal gyro needs to adjust. So part of my internal gyro is my vision. So if I'm not used to this, the first thing that I feel it, but it's also my vision.
Mm-hmm.
So there's times where this in correcting is a little bit slow.
It's that delay for sure.
It is.
And not having as much of the information for your brain to capture because there's not as much light.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can feel it, but I can't see it as well. And the more I do it, I don't do it as much in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
The other night, I was actually quicker in the dark because I went from the 6 o'clock to...
You had the transition.
I did.
Yeah.
Going from
So
light
it gradually
to the
changes.
sun.
Yeah.
You were able to adjust as it kept
Now all of a
setting.
sudden, it actually went quicker because it cooled down.
Yeah.
But
Right.
going the other way, like Thomas did, he just jumped in. And, he's a 28, 27-year-old guy, and so, and he's racing Trans Am, and he's on his game, right? So he just hops in.
Nice.
So it's that, I don't want to talk about age much, but that I think that
It is a thing at a point.
it is a thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a thing. So, it's interesting is it was a really nice feather in my cap to be able to run with him and have the same times. It was
for
100,
sure.
100. Yeah, it was fun to be able to go. Oh, right. It's nice. Super nice.
As a driver coach and someone who's done a lot of endurance style driving where you're sharing the seat, how did you measure yourself just as a driver? Because I know, for instance, like whenever I do the endurance stuff,
Yeah.
it's a team thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like to win an endurance race. I really want to win the 24 Hours of Charlotte at some point.
Nice. It's a good goal.
Yeah, well, after many failed attempts. But I know it's a team aspect.
Yeah.
I didn't do that by myself. And then honestly, there was a time where I did have pride in how long I could drive. Like I did 12 hours of a 24 once. I did 10 hours a couple times. But if you're driving that much, it means your team's not quite as good as maybe they need to. Because if the team is good as a whole, then
Yeah.
you as an individual don't
Yeah.
need to carry so
There's
much
that
weight.
split time, yeah.
So the ego's definitely been checked as I got older about having to have all the seat time and more about the overall. But where I'm going with that is, as just an individual, obviously sprint racing, when it's just you versus everyone else, it's pretty easy to kind of compare yourself.
Yeah.
Teammates, you can maybe compare yourself, etc. But after all these years and different things you've gotten a chance to do, and doing a lot of coaching, testing, and then as the races got less,
Yes.
how do you still go, where am I at? Or is it more of a, you judge off of how your students do or whatever? I mean, how do you kind of rate yourself, I suppose?
Yeah, that's. I'm still buzzing on cloud nine, like I said earlier about Saturday night, and that's a great question. I haven't raced much lately, like you said, and when you look at somebody like Thomas Merrill, his career is going like this, and maybe my career is in terms of a racer, and then all of a sudden, we're the same lap time day and night. It's exciting for me to be able to go, wow, there's a lap time there, and how did I do that after the last couple of years were minimal racing? But I'm always in the car, and then all of a sudden I'm trying to sort that out right now. It's like, as a human in the last 5 years, I've had some great trainers, therapists, trainers, Jill. There's been some great learning. So, as a couple of things. One is, as a human, the mind, body, spirit side of it all, I've evolved as a human. Less drama, less trauma, more grounded, maybe more connected to God or love or light or whatever that energy is. So I'm evolved as a human. Maybe my internal gyro and my eyes are maybe down a little bit. But that being said, I'm not as fit, but maybe I never had to be that fit before. It was just maybe my brand. It was me being dysfunctional and just keeping myself really, really busy. So as I evolve and heal as a human, I'm actually a better human and a better driver. So I haven't really lost anything. I've maybe given up a little fitness because I'm not pushing so hard. But all the work I've done to be able to go, oh yeah, I am who I am, and I'm really proud of myself. Mm-hmm. Where maybe before is like I stayed busy, this being authentic here, I stayed super busy to avoid myself. So with great trainers and processes of having some tools with, you know, Jill and some other people, and even Joy, when I talk to her, still I evolve as a human, and actually I haven't lost much, if anything. So it's really remarkable. I'm still buzzing on.
Still very capable of getting the job done.
Yeah, at 62 or 63, I need a calculator.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I never really think about my age, right? And yeah, I mean, in terms of running from here, I probably can't run from here to Phoenix, but I can do enough. And before, I was over the top fit. And if I was going to get in the car and do 3 hours and then 3 hours and 3 hours, I would focus in and get back to 100 hours a week of working out and stuff.
For sure.
And really being here a lot and this is like going to the batting cages, right? So this is real work that you do here. I think I was with karting and, you know, training and stuff, it was 100-hour a week work to stay that fit. And again, I'd probably over the top, didn't need to do that. But I think you guys mentioned a little while back, if I could change things around a little bit, is I got hired as a coach, not just for driving, but how come he's so fit? And how come he has that personality?
Not just a driving coach, but a total package.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of my clients that, you know, I could build a team, I could motivate, I can educate, I can lead by example, I can teach people. You know, I have 12, when I come to the track, I have 12 people that we can call professionals, whether it's massage therapists or microscopists or chiropractors or herbologists, that we can call from 12 to 2, and they'll take my call to figure out a shoulder, endurance, fear, and hook her up with Jill, you know, all these other things that allow
you have all your experiences
to be better. Yeah.
But then you have also all your resources that come with that.
Yeah. So I'm just not a driver and a coach, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
cool.
and so that's a huge part of it too, is that what you bring to the table as a driver coach or at this point you almost have to expand what a driver coach really is at that point.
Right.
But what you're able to do there too is go, well, obviously you're able to show that you can cut the lap time, and that's pretty badass.
Grateful.
But then you can also go, when you see your drivers go out and do well or go to the next thing, like, you know, you had a huge part in that as well.
Yeah.
And that I would assume trickles down to all the rest of the parts of the business, etc.
Yeah. When I bring the kid over, you saw Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lucas is cool. He's 16 and he's eyes wide open, right?
Right.
And he's awesome. He's really excitable. He's on it. He's a new human. He's I don't know, 3 generations younger than I am and a couple from you guys. And, you know, to be able to walk him in and meet you guys who are the bosses and understand the etiquette. He can come in now and he doesn't need me. Now he's in, and you guys will remember him and you guys will guide him and I can trust you guys in doing your program here. And so it's huge to have those resources. We go to Willow, we go somewhere else, we go to Thermal. I can get him into these teams, he and his dad, and I can, you know,
to bridge that gap.
Exactly, because that gap is massive.
Yeah. And
I always think about bridging that. It's so interesting. I think about having a chump car or some of the new programs now, endurance programs to be able, I've always talked to you about that, is about trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And the gap, you know, especially to IMSA is, I mean, it's like surfing a longboard at Huntington and then going to North Shore, you know, and surfing Pipeline. You're on a board and you're in water, but it's 2 different things.
Right.
It's massive.
What kind of role, or what role, do you find you use karting for in the coaching game? Because I know some they've already driven cars and they've come here.
Yeah.
Yet others, kind of like with the kid, maybe they're just starting out or whatever.
Yeah.
What role does karting play for you on that realm? And then how do you see maybe you use it in the future?
Karting, so like a client at Ferrari Challenge, for instance, will, you know, he's an active guy, he owns a business, whatever his story is, and there's different stories, but he may only drive 3 days a month or maybe 4 days every other month, depending on the schedule for Ferrari Challenges, 4 races.
When he can fit it in.
When he can fit it in. And so So every lap and every hour is important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what the kid and Lucas and I talked about. You know, it's like I like to bring him here on a Wednesday and go to the track on Thursday, Friday. So we're going to go like this. Hopefully this week we're here on Wednesday, and then we're at the track on Friday. So he has a sim now. So every hour and every lap are important. So we can come here, bang fenders over here at here in the sport carts. I don't even want him to go to something next level because he hasn't perfected the sport car program, right?
100%.
Fundamentals.
For sure. Putting a wheel up on the boss. You remember that day? It was so funny in that look, and I said, you know what you just did? So it's the etiquette, right? So he's looking at F1 all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I watched F1. I watched this, I watched this last race. Like, you don't know where you really are.
Right.
Let's be looking at, Spec Miata for him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Spec Miata, the national championship at Road America, or the Spec Racer Ford at COTA. Let's look at some of the mistakes they're making, there, and some of the victories some of the guys have in drafting.
A little closer to the
F1 is surfing pipeline.
Yeah.
Right. It's a whole another realm.
And he's doing a SRF, I believe, right?
He's actually, his dad just bought him a GT4. It's a Cayman that is it was a street car, and now it's got a cage in and some safety equipment and a wing and some aero, and
right.
He'll be able to progress there in something his dad and his brother can run as well. So it's kind of a family
sharing the car deal.
Yeah. So it's economical, it's affordable, and they have a GT3 that they run. So lead follow, it's some tools, and so this is like going to the batting cages, right? So you can't play softball every night, but you can go to the batting cages as much as you can and start hitting balls. And it's the same thing here. It's the internal gyro. It's the there's people go, it doesn't translate, but it actually does. Because you're thinking about it, you're dreaming about it. Every lap and every hour count.
Yeah.
And I have to. Lucas and I came up with that. That's got to build a shirt. Build a hat.
That's awesome.
But that is sim work, karting. It's the 5 days a week for me for years, for 20 years, 30 years of doing something, going down and banging fenders, going down to No Fear, having a B210 in a dirt lot. Renting a car from Hertz and doing a slalom. You can do a slalom at here, Dodger Stadium, Qualcomm, or whatever they call San Diego Stadium. You can do that a couple times a month. So it's hours and laps.
Yeah,
it's all important if you're going to progress.
What of the things you had mentioned earlier, and we haven't really talked about much, but I'm curious about it. You said I think it was lead development for TRD. Mm-hmm. What is that all about? How's that? So
they have special projects, and I work through Gardner Communications, and I went 230 miles an hour in a land speed cruiser, they call it, which is
seems to be pretty quick.
It's pretty quick, and it was at the Mojave Spaceport, and I did all the development testing for that. It started out as a land cruiser, and then it was all, the whole chassis was chopped and rebuilt.
Yeah.
It had it was a Wiseman all-wheel drive Pro 4 trophy truck all-wheel drive system in it, and went finally back to a trophy truck two-wheel drive. But 2,000 horsepower. They wanted to have the fastest SUV.
So you were 231 in an SUV.
I was yeah.
That's so.
And you can look at TRD website. They have the deal was I did all the testing, and then Carl Edwards flew in on his jet and did the 230. And
testing went well then.
Yeah.
Carl showed up, did the picture, got back
that's what
with
it
his
was.
jet.
Yeah, that's what it was. But it was a couple year program. There was a CHR that has 600-700 horsepower, 4-cylinder front wheel drive.
That's the van you were driving, right?
The van is the Sienna. The Sienna van was the van that we TRD wanted to build parts for a van because in the demographics of a Sienna van, they found out that husbands and wives would love an aero kit, lowered springs, upgraded brakes for some like PV,
right? Yeah.
Or other things, and so we built some of the parts. People come out and drive the stock one. We had an S-Tune van, which is halfway halfway to the R tune. And so people got to.
That's pretty damn
took
cool.
1,400 pounds out of that van. And then
I bet they handle a hell of a lot better when you do that.
And then we went out and did the one lap of America. So that's 8 days of time trials and special tests.
Wow.
Jeez.
So you drive, you do an event like at Road America, and then you drive 500 miles to Indy or something, and then you try to make it that night to the hotel, and then you do another event the next day. And
So the SUV, that was your first gig with TRD?
no,
Okay.
I've been. We did a Scion program up at Thunder Hill for the 25 hour.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was fun.
Really good. Yeah, that was
Thunder Hill always gets a good turnout for the
25 hour.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, we'll probably be going there this year with the team that we drove with up.
That's cool.
up at Utah.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Trying to get the team going, organized, and then the driver and the spotter. The key. I shouldn't be saying this, but the key up there is a spotting team.
Yeah.
It's super cold or it's super rainy or both.
Right.
And so keeping them dry, comfortable, spotting is really important because you might pass under the yellow. It might be a 10-minute hold in black flag.
Kill you.
You
Yep.
can never make it up.
Can't have those mistakes.
No.
Yep. I'm not going to ask you the question of...
Do it.
No, I think this is why, because as you had mentioned earlier, everything being the same, like no hierarchy or anything like that. So I'm not going to ask you what do you like more between testing or racing or coaching. I'm not going to ask you that, but I am going to ask you, what is your favorite part of those three elements? Like, what is it? You're like, God, I actually really like doing the testing thing because of this, or driving, or coaching because of this, or what are the things that make you go, yeah, hell yeah, I want to do that, and it's not just a paycheck. Like testing, for instance. What's your favorite part about testing?
Like a tire test with Continental, we'll have like 8 or 10 sets that before lunch I'll do 6 laps, out laps, 6 laps, takes time, and we'll rate them on how they come in, overall grip, and there's you can launch the space shuttle with all the computer stuff on the cars, and that'll be a Porsche. It'll be a fast Porsche, and then go to lunch, and then after we'll take 3 sets and do an hour run on them. So that's 3 hours of running, and being able to be that fit to be able to do banging laps after lap after lap. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And you only have like 20 people, maybe there's 30 people on the whole property. So there's not much going on. I tested at Indy, Road America, Watkins Glen by myself.
What's been one of the tracks you got tired of at the end of the weekend? You're like, oh, cool, I'm at Road America because I love this track. And then you're like, God, I hate this track.
If I got to turn one more bloody lap around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always thought Lime Rock, before they paved it, was a shithole, and it's really dangerous. It's like a street course. And then I won there, so I think it's a great track.
Isn't that weird how that happened?
that was being here with Technico. I hated it.
Yeah.
And then I finally won on the 206, and I'm
Nice.
like, oh, this track's pretty cool.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
It's funny how that happens. No, I don't know. It just I like it all. There's a couple turns like the other night up at Salt Lake City. It was like going through turn 3. The car wasn't working. I was up on the curb trying to figure it out. I was brake off, letting it roll in, getting back to power. I was carrying brake, nothing. And it just, it's so sketchy. We weren't loading the car on the right rear. It seemed like, and we don't have that much problem with the cart, but you get on the tire and there's no weight pushing down on the tire. The light spraying, not enough bar, not enough shock. It just goes like this, and there's no force on that tire into the ground. So it was just loose. And every time through there was an adventure.
Wow.
It's like,
All
damn
right,
it.
turn 3 again. Here
Here
we
you go.
Yeah.
What's it going to be? And always in reaction.
Yeah.
Never like driving it through. And karting is the same way. There's some turns. It's like, all right, here we go. It's always in reaction. It's always behind the cart.
Yeah.
God, I felt that way at Lancaster, actually. Even though the weekend went well. That's the way I felt about the right-hander. It was the spot on the course that I just was not as good as everybody else. I mean, my opinion, everybody else beat me through there. But it was like, all right, like I think I'm gonna try it over here this time. I'm gonna try it over here this time. And we were talking about maybe hundreds or thousands of difference in the lap time.
Yeah.
But it's the way it feels
Yes.
to me that is the unknown.
You know,
and I get through it, I'm like, God, I don't even know why that worked.
Yeah.
But that's the problem.
Right.
I can't even
know.
duplicate it.
I know, exactly. And knowing both you guys, it's only about a half a mile an hour.
It's not much.
It's not much. And from sending it through there and not sending it through there, it's only like barely a half mile an hour. It's critical on how you feel, right?
Yeah.
It's in the moment. It's like, I just handle like shit.
Yeah.
How come I can't get off the turn and I'm slow to throttle? Maybe somebody's got to jump on me every time through here, and now you got to make that time back up somewhere.
Yeah, and then the faster you go, or to your point about the Lime Rock being like a street course, Lancaster literally is a street course.
Yeah.
Comfort in whenever you have a small margin of error scenario, like for instance, at Sonoma, the kart track, they've got this tic-tac-toe.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And, having the confidence to go, I know exactly where to put the car every lap, not only to be fast, but to bring it back in one piece every single time. This is not going to be a problem. This is all good. Or going in there going, I hope I don't break something this time, because you just smash over the curbs over
banging
there.
the curbs.
So I think that's another situation where just if the driver's comfortable in the equipment or setup or whatever, it goes a hell of a lot longer way. I mean, for instance, with your testing and stuff like that, 230 in a Land Cruiser or whatever, all these different elements. Okay, maybe it can hit this lap time, or maybe it can hit this mark.
Yeah.
But if you're scared shitless doing it, well, that's probably not a good endurance setup.
Yeah.
Or if you're working your ass off, it's got to be not enjoyable, but it's got to be decent to drive to keep hitting it lap after lap.
Yeah. With a Porsche, you always had a 6-cylinder, right? And so up against BMWs and GM cars and on and on and on. Now it's the Mercedes, and it's always the My point is, most of my career was always like load the gun and point at myself every lap. So everything so I always had to be fit, because I'm making 13 moves down to the apex every time to be able to get to that apex and then smoothly unwind the wheel and load that outside rear and continue on.
Yeah.
But it was always the fitness, always, because I was always at 10/10. So
your body can keep doing it and your mind can keep up with it. Yeah.
That's the thing is, interesting you say that, because the minute you get dehydrated or tired, then the first, it's this, and now
brain goes bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vision, brain.
What was one of the more sketchy moments? Well, this is gonna be a 2-part question.
Yeah.
How was it as a early on driver, your first test day? You were like, holy shit, they're trusting me to go do this right now.
Oh.
What was the most sketchy moment you had testing?
Broke a center out of a BBS and hung a Corvette on the catch fence. I had to crawl out.
Wow.
Where is this?
At Firebird Raceway.
Jesus.
BBS center broke out a wheel and hung it on the fence. Had to
Get
crawl
out.
out.
You flipped her up onto the fence.
Wow.
Broke an upright. Something broke in the right front at Cal Speedway and hit the wall. It turned 2 before
you duck in.
Well, before the safer barriers went up at Cal Speed.
Wow.
Jeez.
Drilled the wall at about 174, going flat through.
What were you in?
BMW M3 with an M5 in it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then
and as you're coming around the 2,
it tightens up.
it decides it's going to go right.
Rusty Wallace style.
Oh yeah.
Crashed my brains out. 2 weeks later, I had a concussion. 2 weeks later, Piero got underneath me at the Petit Le Mans at turn 11, and went from here to probably that wall, from 135 to 0.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
Pre-Hans. That was a couple weeks later. So I had a concussion at the time.
Yeah.
So.
And certainly that didn't fix it.
No, I ran over across there and right there, and Piero, the Audi team, is right there, and I ran over there, and I had my helmet on. I was ready to start swinging.
Yeah.
And I looked around, and I saw the manager, and I know him from Champion Porsche, and I said, "You got to tell me within 30 seconds that you're going to write a letter to Ferrari," because I was in a Ferrari, to the team and the owner, apology from Audi, that you put me into the fence, or I'm going up there and I'm going to protest to Marty Kaufman, who was the race director.
Right.
And I'll put your lap down. You won't make the championship.
What ended up happening?
Got letters.
Nice.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem. For you, Craig Stanton, no problem. We'll make it happen.
So
they didn't want to lose the championship. They didn't want to have a penalty.
What about that first test day you had? What were you thinking?
It was such an easy progression.
Really?
It was such an easy progression because we'd done so much. I'd done so much driving, so much homework, so much practice, so much with the bikes and nothing. There's a point there where nothing's new. And if it's new, then you can problem solve really quick. So, it's like you guys hopping into shifter really quick. I mean,
well, not me. Maybe a KA100.
Yeah, there you go. My point is that you guys can sort it out pretty quick because you have all this information.
Yeah.
You have all this inside you.
There's a good baseline and a good understanding of how it works.
Yeah. But yeah, there's times where it's like, really, there's 40 people on the team and engineers and stuff, and I'm, the cars.
And one driver.
Yeah, the cars, I'm there testing, and they've got people flying in from all over the world, and there's a backup car, and
And this is for me?
Yeah, this is like it's just my job.
That's awesome.
And it's just my job to do, and it's weird. If I thought about it longer, I could really spool myself up. But for the most part, you just put your suit on and put your helmet on, and you make sure you have water, and you make sure you're buckled in, and you make sure that you're really super comfortable, and you have your have my marching orders, and you start out easy. You don't spook yourself, and you just tick it along, tick it along. And they usually give me 10 laps to anchor it in. And I'm not at 10/10 qualifying. It's more 3 or 4 days of testing, and during all those hours, right, that I've got to be sharp the last day.
Yeah.
It's getting yourself set up for a 24-hour race to be able to be fast that last session. Awake, clear, recovered. Because you might have to push that last stint.
What's your favorite part of the coaching? Like, what is whether it be the driving or the conversation, what of the coaching is your favorite piece?
Yeah. So when the light bulb comes on, and you guys feel it, the earth shudders. When somebody just goes, I got goosebumps. When somebody gets goosebumps, when somebody gets it, you can feel it in the car when you're side by side and you're hooked up like we are. And like, for instance,
that moment where it clicks.
The kid the other day just goes, oh, like that. And it's the 3-year pill that just, and he's got all that information in him. You just have to open up. You just got to give him the code.
Yeah.
All that information's already inside that human. And he just goes, oh my God, like that, and
wow.
Yeah.
For me, it's
I hear you do that.
That's it.
Yeah. You're talking about it and I'm going, yep, that's exactly the same thing for me. You're working with somebody, and maybe it's the first day, maybe it's the 100th, but when it happens, when you go out there, you're like, hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
Big
hell
time.
yeah.
Hell yeah. You just did it.
Yeah.
Do that every time from now to the last day you drive.
Exactly.
That's it right there.
And it usually spawns okay, we got it. Now we're going to move on to the next thing and the next thing and so on and so forth. Absolutely. That's brilliant.
One of the new things for me is if you look at yoga or something, there's an integration process. So if a guy or a gal is doing I'm just going to pull a number out of my butt, a 130 and then a 127, a 126, 124, there's no integration process. And I can get somebody to go that quick through rehearsal or prompting, or I can tell them what to do, but to do it on their own, if you go from a 130 to a 126, that's a big gap. And if shit goes wrong, if the back end steps out, there's no integration. There's no internal gyro. There's no vision skill sets for that.
Just because you can hit the lap time doesn't mean you know what the hell you're doing.
Right.
Right. Like that always is a big deal for me with my coaching, is giving people the tools.
Yeah.
So that, like, if we're doing a follow leader, great, you hit the lap, you followed me, fantastic. Now, why is it that when I go behind you, it all turns to shit? That means we're not looking where we're supposed to be going. That means you are just following me.
Yes.
You're not driving the car. You've just thrown the tow hooks out.
Yeah.
Now, give them all the information.
Absolutely.
And then that's when it's like, okay, you don't have to have an instructor around to be able to knock this thing out of the park on your own.
Yeah. That's an awesome process to be able to guide that person through that, because it is easy to do a lead follow and then you can do it on your own. Okay, let's break that down. So you can do the lap time, but really, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you do it without me in the side of the car or whatever?
And that's the integration process. That's the work, right?
Right.
So you give them that 2-year pill, you give them that skill set, and then now you got to perfect it. There's 50 laps.
Right.
Or there's 3 days that, you've, or 4 days, whatever it is, that you've got to come back, and then you can work with him again, or that integration process to get the internal gyro and all the things, all the plans to become aligned again, for him to do that or her to do that.
Yeah, and not have to be reminded to just, that's the way they go. They go out there and they do it. Yeah. They don't have to, they're not being taught how to do those things. They've added it to their repertoire.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. On the racing side of things, as we talked about with the career going away from full-time race car driver, all other kinds of stuff, what is the thing that you maybe, well, I can't even say miss because you still do it. I mean, you just got done doing it.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part about racing, about doing the racing? Whether it be a championship, a race itself, or whatever.
One of the favorite parts for me is to be able to help build a team, to use the tools that I have been gifted with, and to help the team, guide the team, and then execute.
Nice.
And when it's like going to battle, right? You hear people in World War II, oh, that was the best time in life, or whatever. It was the team, it was the platoon, or whatever.
Camaraderie between.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, we're brothers because we went out and we had, each of us and together, we've had sessions, right, where the magic happened. For me, running with you guys over the years, there was one session, I can't remember what it was, but you and I laughed at each other and high-fived each other and hugged and the same with you. Those moments, that feeling, whether it's in a kart or a car, when I come in and people just jump off the wall and, there's a podium hat. I didn't even know there was a podium. I didn't even know I'm just out there banging laps, going through the field. I didn't know because nobody's telling me. And all of a sudden there's Michelin there with a podium hat.
Right.
Holy shit. We got on the podium and then we won. That things like that, having the light bulb go on with the crew guy, having a crew guy that's broke down because of his family, something's going on internally, being able to guide him back, having the ability to crash my brains out and having, being able to get myself back even stronger,
the relationships and the overall, the bigger aspects of a team more than just the actual going out and doing the business.
As interesting as, yes, Ford versus Ferrari. You see the driver in Le Mans. He just surrendered, right? All of a sudden he's reached that perfect lap, or whatever that means for whoever's experiencing the movie at the time. But you surrender, like, yeah, I'm here. This is exactly what. This is as close to God as you can get. Right here. This is as close to our true nature, our true spirit, our, the love of it all. This is the closest you can get, and it's badass.
Absolutely.
I have a great story. I got to tell.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
I know you're looking at each other going to drop it off, but I have a funny story. Machismo, and I don't know what year. I know that I was at a Continental test for 4 days and Machismo at Vegas. And it's a night race for some of you people that don't know about Machismo. It's a badass, it's super nats, people from all over the world. And, the super nats is going on during the day and we take over at night and have some crazy freaking 12-hour.
Yeah, that was either 2008 or 2009. I can't remember which year. It was one of those 2 years that was going on.
And
the venue's set.
The venue's set. It's warm. It's Vegas. It is Vegas. And Vegas is Vegas. And I'm driving with. There's a couple stories here where this is really funny. So I'm driving with Efren, and I'm driving with Mike Kai.
Yeah.
The three of us, and we're in the blue carts.
The Stratus carts.
Yeah.
The pro class.
Yeah, it was 2009. I was there that same year too, in the sport class.
Yeah. We had a badass cart, and we were top of the chart in practice. It was perfect. I remember floating valves down the back straight. Anyway, and we fly in. We've got a place there at the Rio, and things are perfect. And evidently, it was John Cabril's birthday.
Okay.
And so Mike Kai and Efren decide we're going to take John Cabrel out for the night. And I think Papa was along, and
all part of the strategy.
Well, I don't know. It's one of those things that it just evolves.
Yeah.
And we had a great practice. Loved the track. It was super bumpy. I thinking, man, I've been on a car for 4 days. I need to, I was all about the kart.
Right.
It's Machismo, man. It's 12 hours. I want to win this thing.
Game time, baby.
Yeah, right. So I'm sleeping at night, and I remember waking up about 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. It's like, boys are out. And about 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, I hear the door just slam open.
Yeah.
And Mike Kai just goes, "This is a bad idea." And Efren goes, "It was a perfect idea." And oh man, it was a rough day for those guys. And I'm thinking, we just need to hurry up, Efren, get over your hangover.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was happening. That happens in the morning, right? And the race happened in the evening.
Oh yeah,
It didn't get going, so they had a little bit of time.
they had a little bit of time, but the time was faster than Efren.
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
he needed more time.
I think I drove 8 hours on that thing. Oh man, it was a funny. Those guys. That's old guard, right?
Yeah.
Oh, big time.
Old guard.
That's,
sure.
that's Dromo stuff, right? Those guys. Yeah.
Old guard. Yeah, that's when you can kind of like hop in and not be a regular, but hop in and do really well.
Yeah, and the depth of the field.
Yeah.
Then versus now is two different things.
Now you've got to be really polished.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to have your wits about you in all aspects.
Absolutely.
It's really cool. And that's one of my points is that back then we could hop in and a couple of boys could be hungover and a guy can run a lot of laps. And I remember being all the way down at the bottom, spinning the last 2 teeth off that sprocket, and I had to push that cart all the way back. But my point is that is the evolution of what is CalSpeed. Oh, and by the way, those drivers meetings with Rob are the best. They're classic.
Speaking of when you were running up front, you had to actually leave the Grands early, I think on Saturday. Back when we did the Sport Kart Grands.
I did.
I remember you got the call for the ride.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Oh shit, that's right. And you were actually sharp end of Masters at the time.
Yeah.
For the Masters
And I
Championship.
think you actually had a chance of contending for overall, but the Masters, you definitely had a good shot at it.
That was really.
What was that called? I don't know.
If you can remember.
I don't remember. I still have my. If I come back, which I hope I do, I'll look at my calendar because I still have them. I'll have to look what that was. That was really cool. It was. I wanted to stay.
It was good news, bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really cool to be able to.
But man, like
to be here and support that. I always wanted to. You always asked me, and I wanted to do it. Yeah. You always called me up, and.
So I think that was the year. Was that the year Mackler won?
It might have been 2013.
So, yeah.
I mean, that was probably. All those years are stacked, and it. There's some drivers that came and went, but the new guard doesn't really know you.
No.
No. And
no.
To say that you were contending for the overall the Grands podium, it says you know how to freaking drive a go-kart too, man.
Can you imagine if Craig Stanton decided to come out and run Grand Masters at the Super Series?
That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
They would hate it.
I remember a hot day here, and we had it was the hour race, Ironman, and I remember John Cambrell pushing him, and John was, I love that whole family, and the old guard, right?
Yeah.
And I remember pushing him, just push, and finally, that was funny. He just, I can't do this anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love. There's so many great stories. It just they all flood in. Funny shit. I've laughed my ass off, and I've driven really super hard here.
Well, man, I tell you what, this has been a hell of a lot of fun.
Man.
I haven't gotten a chance to have a lot of just conversation because you're here, you're doing your thing, and we
You
get
are
a chance.
too.
We're both busy. This is and we haven't spent any time away from the track ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we thank you for not only coming to the show, but always bringing everybody out to the track and getting to see new people and whatnot, and also hear their different stories because you get people from all different kinds of walks of life and different types of racing, and I'm looking forward to having you back out here at the track all the time. And man, shit. Maybe doing another one of these things here.
I know I could
fanboy
out and ask you more questions about the car stuff because it's just
go all day.
We've had some brief conversations about, hey, what do you got going on or what are you doing recently or next, so.
Yeah.
But now to hear everything has been awesome and we love having you out here.
Yeah, it's cool to watch you guys contain the bomb, which is a bunch of, A-types out there, and they all want to do it differently, right? So being able to have, because when you come to CalSpeed, you know what's expected, and you guys have a little bit of a, not that there's a sheriff in town, but there is a sheriff in town.
It's not the Wild West, that's for sure.
Exactly. And you keep law and order here because it could go away quickly. And
Sure.
I think that you set the tone for a lot of things here. meaning that this is how you operate a business, this is how you operate a track. You know, there's certain ways you do things so that you help if somebody else is going on to another kart track or somebody's going to go on to another, you know, a racetrack or something. They have skill sets when they leave here.
Awesome.
Yeah, big time.
For sure,
And that's badass because that's what we're all about, is trying to keep things safe and give people tools to succeed.
And get more people into karting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hoorah.
Thanks again,
I'm
Craig.
grateful for you guys as well for the time and being able to tell my story, and it's fun. And, you know, you guys have equally amount of stories, you know, and I've been talking about myself, but this is a podcast here. And so, but, you know, I want to hear your stories too, because, you know, you're at the track 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of shit happens.
Yeah. Well, there'll eventually be a Derek podcast, a Mike podcast. And
Yeah.
maybe we turn the tables at some point.
Oh, I'd love to be in it. Yeah, you can have a panel of
There
people
you
that
go.
would ask you guys questions.
Or just talk shit to us, probably.
It'll
More
devolve.
along those lines, yeah.
But I appreciate it again. And
Shit, yeah, that's
and
good.
man, like I said, we'll probably end up doing another one of these things as we head down the road.